It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The Wes Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, November 10th, 2021, and somehow, someway, it's the season end is upon us. I can't believe it. The World Finals, the NHRA Finals this coming weekend. We have a killer packed show for you coming up today. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to be joined in the very first hour by the one and only Lyle Barnett, fresh off a second huge win at the NHRA E3 Spark Plugs Pro Mod Series drag racing event in Las Vegas, the conclusion of the 2021 Pro Mod season. We will also be joined by Mark Pawuk, a pro stock legend, factory shootout superstar, and someone who I think can give us a little bit of insight as to NHRA's new exhibition eliminator factory experimental that will be, I believe, unveiled later this year. We will also, at 4 p.m., be joined by Ron Capps, deep in the throes of an NHRA Funny Car Championship battle, and I somehow skipped all the way over it. Mike Janis Jr. Joining us at 3 p.m. to talk a little bit about all these Pro Mod rule updates that came out late last week. But I got to tell you what, guys, as always, I suppose it's no surprise at this point, the most important person, the absolute most important people to this whole show, to this whole rigmarole, is you. So thank you all so much for being a part of it, joining us here at Drag Racing's Water Cooler every Wednesday afternoon. I would ask that you tell us where you're checking in from, what you've got going on this weekend, maybe where you were at this last weekend and where you're headed next weekend. It's always great to hear where our racing viewers are headed for the weekend. To be honest, we've established this, I think, over the course of the last several weeks, that there's a seriousness to what we do here on the Wes Buck Show, right? We're talking drag racing, we're having fun, but I mean it when I say that these are discussions that need to be had in an unfiltered way. They need to be had in an open forum, and I'm so proud of what we have here. And your contribution, honestly, means as much or more so than any guest we ever have on here. Truly, your commentary means the world, so please keep them coming. Makes all the difference in the world. We appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. As always, I am joined today by my guest via digital studio, the ones and only Mike Carpenter, JT Hudson, Murder Tundra. What's going on, buddy? I don't know why it showed up like this, and it's got us all in different spots. I'm moving us around. I think we're good, man. How are you guys?
Good. How you doing?
Holy crap, man. I'll be honest. I'm going 2,000 miles an hour. I literally walked in the studio about 18 minutes ago, just got in town. I was in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma overnight. I was actually excited. Mike, I meant to call you back, but I've been on the phone the entire time. I wanted to touch base with you guys and share my experience, man. I went up to Oklahoma City to check out one of our sponsors, Operation Stroud Safety. We went up last night, had dinner with Tommy Cunningham and his wife Anita, had a fantastic time, stayed at the Omni in downtown Oklahoma City. Have either of you two ever been to Oklahoma City?
Have not. Need to, though.
Dude,
been through there.
Sleeping on. I've been through that town like literally 15,000 times. Yeah. Like you drive through Oklahoma City, but you never really get into town. You always just kind of scrape along the bottom south side of the town. And dude, this was an incredible experience. I've had a lot of people compare Oklahoma City to Fort Worth, that it's obviously a sizable town. It's a big city, but it has a small town feel. And Oklahoma takes that and like Oklahoma City ratchets it up a level. Like it's a really interesting place, super clean, well kept. And like I said, we stayed at the Omni, went to dinner at Bob's Steakhouse, right? Which apparently Mike, you may know the story on this. Apparently Bob's Steakhouse is like the original partner of Del Frisco's.
Really? I don't know.
And then
that.
he like broke off. They had a falling out or something. And he
I don't
went
know
off.
much about Del Frisco except for it's good. And I want to go there more.
It's good. I want to go
it's
there
expensive.
more frequently.
Yeah. I only go there if Wes is buying.
Dude, I'm telling you, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I'm a fancy steakhouse fanatic. I love going to fancy steakhouses, but I've never been to Bob's, and it was a 5-star. Would definitely recommend doing it again.
Did you run into any street racing? 405.
I know. I didn't run into any like street racing legends or anything. I was looking around. I had my
Yeah.
head on a swivel, bro.
Pretty
I'm out
disappointing.
here.
But it sounds like
I'm out
in
here
the wrong,
looking around.
Yeah, you were in the wrong section.
Yeah, I don't know that we were. Well, I tell you, we went bouncing around this morning. We did a couple of things. So we got up and we had to do this all early, right? Alicia gets up at like 6:30 to get ready. I got up at like 7 so that because I told her like I need 15 minutes to get ready. I can do this quickly. So we jump out the door. Of course, we got to find a place to get coffee. I can get ready pretty quickly if I have to.
Not really.
If I have to, I can do it very quickly. But anyways, we go find coffee, and then we went to the Oklahoma City Memorial. Bro, you want to talk about something that'll rip your heart out. Like, I've never been to Ground Zero. Have either of you guys been to Ground Zero in New York City?
Okay. No. I've actually never been to New York City, period, which is
Really?
I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that.
All right, well, we need to fix that.
On the
New York City.
New York City. Yeah, that's the closest.
New York City.
Saying that. New York City.
Man,
I've flown over it.
I've never been to Ground Zero, so I guess maybe I don't know that I've ever really been to like one of those like hallowed ground memorial
we have been
type
to New
of
York.
places.
We had to go from New York to Saudi Arabia.
So,
there we go.
Yeah,
we've been
we were
there.
in New York.
Yeah.
We've been there.
That doesn't count.
That doesn't. It kind of counts though, because you get a taste of New York being
you do.
in the airport. You really do, from the people and the kind of the attitude and the edge that exists up there in the Northeast. But seriously, man, we drove by the Oklahoma City Memorial, where the bombing took place many, many moons ago. What was like 96 or 7 or something like that. And it's just amazing how you go to a place like that and it immediately just sends chills, up your spine. And it's like you're looking around and the way it was kept. I mean, they had all these landscapers out there, like keeping everything just perfect and the respect being shown to it. And just, such a sobering moment at like 7:45 a.m. But anyways, after that, I typed in the address to Stroud Safety, headed over. It was just like 8 miles away from downtown Oklahoma City. And I tell you what an absolute treat. Like I want to revisit this again in the future, but I'll just tell you guys like the story while we're here. I roll up in this place. Tommy Cunningham purchased Stroud from Bob Stroud. I mean, it's a legendary business in our industry, right? Stroud Safety, making parachutes and seat belts and window nets and ballistic blankets. The list goes on. We roll into this place, and Tommy purchased it, I believe, at the end of 2019 or around there. Anyways, go inside, and in this day and age of automation, right, and everything being done by robots and everything being super high tech, when he was giving me the tour, Tommy walks me into this room and there's like a single door and a few steps down, and I'm looking out and it's literally about maybe 24, 30 women at sewing machines sewing every one of these parachutes by hand. Every window net being made by hand, stitched by hand. And I just thought to myself, like, what a story. I mean, I don't know that people really understand when they reach up and pull that lever or hit the button on the steering wheel, those parachutes that they're relying on are being painstakingly made by a single human being. There is one young woman, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm learning as I go here, but there's one young woman that is responsible for all the parachutes that Stroud makes a year. Wow. That's her job, is the parachute station. There's another young woman that's is tasked with doing window nets. She's the only one who does them. He walked me up on this woman who had a B&J transmission on, upended, like she was going to rebuild it. And it was on a turntable, right? And she was literally building, measuring, and fitting a ballistic blanket to this transmission because they wanted it to fit tighter.
Well, that's how they got to do it for all the custom stuff. I mean,
well, no, that's not, because that's new. Because if you look, a lot of those blankets have that giant ass hole that will go over a Linco AirPod. You know what I mean? And so it's, for a lot of them, it's like one size fits all.
But I mean, as far as the suits and the stuff that need to be custom,
it has to be custom made.
I can remember my dad talking about that back in the day. That's probably a carryover from the Bob Stroud era, but they are super quick on repairs and turnaround on SFI research, all that stuff. I can always remember it was like you'd get a note or something like fixed. Looks good, fix the hole in this or whatever. Like, it's like somebody specifically.
Literally, they had a
sure
it's funny you mentioned that, Mike, because they had like a whole station set up that was just where they would wash your parachute. They had like a washing machine and a dryer, and then they had this apparatus that attached to the ceiling where they could throw it, it on this and dry it. You know what I mean? And then dry it, and jump.
Underrated.
Jump,
I bet washing a chute will help it perform. I mean,
man, it was really interesting. Like this ballistic blanket that she was fitting,
crazy.
It looked like the way she was handling this, it was like she was making a wedding dress, dude. I mean, she's measuring it and pinning it in places. And I'm just thinking to myself, do people really understand the effort and energy and the time that's going into each one of these things? It literally, like, it took my breath away. I mean, I'm not trying to be exaggerative, but in this world, like I said, of everything being automated, shut up, JT. But I mean, you can't even you can't deal with a human being when you check out at Walmart. Right. But I mean, there's a business in Oklahoma. Yeah, I don't know that I want to, but there's a business in Oklahoma City that makes, gear that is essential to our sport and keeping racers safe. And I was just taken by it, man. I was thinking, like, our women of power issue, what are we doing? What a story we've missed, that there's 25 ladies in this room building, putting together safety equipment by hand that's keeping racers safe and out of harm's way. It's a really incredible story, and I can't wait to delve into it a little bit more.
Was there another goodie bag waiting for you?
No, but he did take me out to dinner, so I've got no complaints, man. We had filet mignon. We had some great cocktails. I actually switched things up last night and had an old fashioned. Get this, the Hampton Inn in downtown Fort Worth.
Just don't have like 14 of those in a night.
No.
It'd be,
the Hampton I always make you guys stay at in downtown Fort Worth, like the world's, without question, the world's nicest Hampton Inn. Agreed?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Hands down. And it's so I walk in and I sit down at Bob's. Alicia and I sit down and I look over and I see the bartender, and I'm like, golly, this dude looks familiar. Like, I don't know why this guy looks familiar. And I've, as I said, never been to Oklahoma City. Well, he comes over to greet the table and he's like, don't I know you? And I'm like, don't I know you? And he's like, what's your name? I'm like, Wes. And I was like, what's your name? Spencer. He's the freaking bartender. That guy with the beard and the glasses that was always working the bar at the Hampton Inn? He's moving up in the world, man. He's now like the bar manager at Bob's Steakhouse at the Omni in downtown Oklahoma City. Man. Wow, small world. And I fist bumped him. I was like, man, good for him moving up in the world. And but he did confirm that Hampton Inn in downtown Fort Worth is the nicest Hampton Inn in the world, like verified. He said it's the top 5 like ranked Hampton Inns on the planet Earth. It's in the top 5.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Got a nice lounge.
It is nice, man. It's unbelievable, to be honest. So anyways, great morning, but it's been a lot of running around. So I'm kind of trying to catch my hind end as we speak. This has been a wild week here at Drag Illustrated Magazine.
It's just starting. This is like, I forget. It's like every year it sneaks up on you. This time of year, I think we got a little reprieve in 2020 because there were no trade shows.
True.
But this time of year, it just kicks in overdrive. It's like everything you've been putting off, you forgot to do, plus all the stuff you got to do for the trade shows, everything you got to wrap up for the end of the year. If you're in drag racing, whether you're a sponsor, manufacturer, media, everybody is jumping right now.
You're going like 3,000 miles an hour. It's crazy, all the stuff we're going on. We're working on Drag Illustrated After Hours. Of course, our huge party coming up at the PRI show in a couple, 28 days away, December 9th, 2021. Not enough days away. So we're in the throes of party planning, working on all sorts of stuff that we're looking forward to announcing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We got a slew of announcements that are coming out. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. I actually forget how exciting PRI really is. This unique opportunity to get everybody together away from the pressures and stresses of drag racing, which we all know exist and we know are part of it. But it's so nice to see everybody that you would typically see at a racetrack, but do it, in an air-conditioned, climate-controlled room or at Envy nightclub in downtown Indianapolis.
Unless you're selling a truck or trailer, then it's not.
No,
then you're just going to be cold. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're going to be cold. I didn't hardly make it over to the truck and trailer area in 2019. Did you guys go over there?
Just walking. Lunch.
Just a little bit. Yeah,
I'm not in the market for a truck or trailer right now.
Yeah.
If I was, I would check it out.
No, it's really impressive, and I'm anxious to see like what the participation looks like. When we all heard that SEMA was healthy despite everything that was going on in the world, right? And a lot of uncertainty still, and a lot of people kind of still hesitantly returning toward normal operating procedures. But I think Indy's going to be solid. I really do. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to get there and kind of do all the things that we do at PRI. It's going to be a lot of fun, man.
Yeah,
Man, I lived SEMA just following Clay Milliken the whole week. I mean, he did everything. I mean,
isn't that true, man? You got to give it up to him because we
Yeah.
talk all the time. And I do want to remind everybody, click share. If you guys don't mind, it makes a world of difference for us. Click that share button, click like, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're signed up for notifications so you get a little ding or a little pop-up on your screen anytime that we go live or throw down some new content. We do have a ton of drag racing news to cover. I do want to continue on this PRI path a little bit, though, because it's a special time of year, and I'm hoping that people dive in. I really do. I think it's important when the industry has these events like this, and then it's clearly a rebound season. It's important that everybody dive in. It really is. So I hope we have a lot of participation. It sounds like the booth count is very solid. I think it's going to be fire, man. I really do. I mean, at the bare minimum, for our party on Thursday night, it's going to be lit.
Hell yeah. I was worried that the new normal was going to be these online trade shows.
Me too.
And I was like, oh no, because
I still think there's a place for those actually, and I think we'll
maybe,
still see some
maybe
of
a
them,
little bit, but I mean the SEMA. I didn't like the SEMA one last year, but PRI was pretty good.
What did you think of?
We were bouncing around to different tables and stuff. That wasn't bad.
What'd you think of MPMC in the digital format? For
That
those
one
that
was
don't
really
know,
that was actually better. That was
okay.
better. That's what I was
So
talking
for those
about,
that don't know, there's kind of an industry event that happens between, after PRI and SEMA in January. Typically at the end of January, the latter part of or early in the new year in Southern California, the SEMA puts on an event called the MPMC conference, the Motorsports Parts Manufacturers Council, and it's kind of it's an insiders type of event where it's media members meeting with the leading performance parts manufacturers to kind of talk about the coming year and whatnot. And they did that event instead of renting out a hotel and sending everybody on a crazy 50-date speed dating ceremony. They did it digitally. And I thought personally that was pretty well executed. And I think that I want to do some events like that, to be honest. I want to do some of these digital seminars and digital conferences because I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, it was.
That one was. That's the one I was actually talking about. It
replicated the in-person experience very closely. It was like shocking how well it was thought out.
And then even hanging out at the other tables, like in the off time, we were meeting people. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
There's Mark Beatty in the comments from Redline Racing Oils. SEMA was awesome, and we were looking forward to it. I saw Mark go live a handful of times from the Redline booth, and I was impressed, man. I mean, there was a lot of traffic. It looked like there was a lot of the thing that I think SEMA delivers in spades is like the buzz and the celebrity angle.
Flash.
Like they nail that flash and all that, which perfectly fit for Las Vegas.
Yeah, PRI is definitely more hardcore, but I think it's more a dedicated group, and I think that group is going to show up.
Weeds out.
I think the politics are different too. I think Indy, the city, the state embrace it a lot more. I think it's kind of just another trade show. I know SEMA's a huge show. I think it's one of the biggest in Vegas, but it's kind of like lost in the shuffle a little bit with everything going on in Vegas. Indy is built around PRI, it feels like, for that week. So they really embrace it. I think the government embraces it. The economy embraces it. And I think that we'll see that translated at the show. So I think there was maybe a little trepidation at SEMA. I think it was successful for a first year return, but I kind of feel like it was a warm up for PRI, in my opinion.
Who cares about PRI? I mean, except for the party on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, that was the question. Brennan Shortall
just
threw this up here.
Stimulation of the economy comes
Is
from
there a DI after hours this year at PRI? And I want to be the first to tell you that absolutely yes.
Yeah.
December 9th, Thursday, December 9th, 2021, we will return to Indianapolis, Indiana to bring that mofo to the ground. Bring your dancing shoes, bring your drinking glasses. It's going to be a lot of fun. For those that have been to PRI, you understand the grind that event can be. As fun as it is, we're outlining that here today, but it's still a ton of work from the people that work at SEMA and PRI to all the manufacturers that set up these booths, work their butts off, the JT and Nates of the world who are going to set our booth up. Thanks, big dog. Love you, brother. But I mean, it's a really, really it's a rough week. By the end of it, your feet hurt, your back hurts, your throat hurts. You've probably got the flu. I guess I can't make that joke anymore, but
No,
it's a
like
rough
calling
couple
the
of
bomb
days.
on a plane anymore.
I know.
We used to call it trade show flu or something.
Trade show flu. You can't say that stuff,
Yeah,
man.
you cannot. Do not say that.
It's
Monday Morning Racer is going to his first PRI. Don't say that, Monday Morning Racer. If you say anything like that, bring a couple different pairs of shoes, alternate between days. That's a pro tip.
That is a pro tip.
Yeah.
Pro tip.
What else?
What pro tips? That would be actually a
what's
fun.
some other PRI pro tips, JT? JT's probably
business
not the
cards.
guy you want
Bring
to take
business
pro
cards
tips from.
Why?
Bring business cards. I think is a great one. I would say bring
business
some
cards.
cash.
I was thinking
bring some
hangover
cash.
pills.
I think. Don't you guys think that
you could just spend the entire week in the hotel room like JT did one week? That was one way to recover.
I was sick that week. Yeah. Holy cow! Like I missed the party and everything.
That's actually the one time out of all the antics that you get away with, the fact that you did not surface for 4 days had all of us really, really worried.
I know. It's crazy.
Sledgehammer Motorsports is saying plan your route at the show. I got to be honest. I think one of the big ones is eat. I don't know about anybody else, but I get wound up like a Physic woodpecker and I'm going 3 million miles an hour and you don't eat. And the next thing you know, it's 5, 6 o'clock at night. You haven't eaten anything. You've hardly drank any water. All you've had is coffee. So I would encourage you, we should probably do like a whole breakdown of hacks and pro tips for enjoying your experience at PRI. But where I want to close that particular conversation is just support our industry, be a part of it. If you're in the area, if you're within driving distance, go to PRI, search PRI on the World Wide Web, register for the trade show, and come be a part of it. I truly believe, from Dr. Jamie Meyer across the board, everybody involved with the performance racing industry, the organization, as well as the trade show, I believe these people have the sport of drag racing. That's what's important to us. They have all of motorsports in mind, but I do think that top of the list of priorities is the sport of drag racing. And I think that they care a lot about it, and they're trying to do some incredible things for our sport and for car culture in general. So please support them. And because by supporting them, you're supporting us. And then I guess I do want to remind everybody, Drag Illustrated After Hours, absolutely locked in. Envy Nightclub, downtown Indianapolis, Thursday night, December 9th, 2021. It's going to be a whale of a time. We have details that will emerge on Monday of next week, where we will begin the process of filling up all the VIP tables. That's always a big to-do for this deal, but everybody that has had a table in the past will certainly have the opportunity to get one here for 2021. It's going to be a fun one. We do have a lot to cover today, guys. As I said, at 2:45, we'll be joined by NHRA Pro Mod standout Lyle Barnett. Immediately following that, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be joined by Mike Janis Jr., Pro Mod tuner extraordinaire, an incredible young man that does a lot for our sport, and specifically for the Pro Mod division. At 3:30, we'll be joined by Mark Pawuk to talk a little bit about NHRA's new category, new exhibition eliminator factory experimental. And then at 4 p.m., this is kind of cool, we're going to close the show with NHRA Funny Car superstar, world champion, and a guy who's 100% in the mix to win it again in 2021, the one and only Ron Capps. Probably talk a little Napa know-how, talk a little bit about his plans for 2022. I don't know how many details we're going to get, but let's jump right into some of the news of the week, gentlemen. I want to ask, I think we've got to start, to be honest, with the screw blower situation. I'm just curious, we're all three of us big time fans of pro modified style drag racing. Mike, I'm going to go to you right away. For those that don't know, the uninitiated perhaps, NHRAracer.com revealed late last week that for 2022, screw type superchargers will be allowed in NHRA Pro Mod competition. These cars will be contested at 2,740 pounds, 75% overdrive, and mandated a 3.90. That's correct. A 390 rear gear. Very unusual combination for that combination, but it has been the talk of town ever since. Mike, you've been a part of Pro Modified for as long as it has existed, essentially. Your father helped create the class. A 6th power adder. How do you feel about this?
I'm really kind of in the dark as far as what they hope to achieve with this. I really think, if I had to guess, it would be they're hoping to glean a few cars from other series, but how many cars are out there that currently run this combination are going to make that change? And if they do, aren't most of these screw-blown Pro Mods 8th Mile or Outlaw cars? The ones that I can think of are. So to even get them to go quarter mile racing is a test in and of itself. Regardless of the performance and what we think will come of this, I think the opportunity was missed by not further addressing the nostalgia body issue. I think that alone, tabling the screw blown situation, could have made a much more dramatic difference as far as getting cars to show up. If increasing their car count and drawing from regional players and diversifying the class is the goal, I don't think screw blowers were the way to go. I think a dramatic weight break for nostalgia bodied cars would have been the way to go. I think 100-pound weight break for 57 and older, or whatever you want to, wherever you want to draw the line, would have made much more of a difference, would have been received much more positively. But they just didn't do enough in that regard. And you guys had Doug Winters on Monday night, and here's one of our last stalwarts of non-2021 Camaros, and he said he's got a 2021 Camaro.
He said he had to.
Yeah,
he
you have to. I mean, and how could you not? It's completely out of control at this point. So I would have liked to have seen something done with that, and then maybe address the screw blowers at another time or something. But I just don't think it's going to make much of a difference at all, the screw blown situation. And I think that they missed the opportunity with that. And, speaking from the heart on that, Pro Mod, that's one of the things that separates Pro Mod from all these other classes, is you can see these nostalgia cars against the newer model cars. That's the way it's always been. And we are literally on the verge of having nothing but newer model cars. And the only older model cars are going to be 69 Camaros, which are among the most dynamic or aerodynamic body styles out there. So it's, sorry, go ahead.
We heard from Lyle, Monday night on this as well. And Craig Sullivan stopped in, who I guess you might think that that's the perfect candidate to come race, or maybe that's who they were going after.
It felt like who they were going.
And he was like, there's no way, I mean, he'd have to spend $50K to get it in NHRA trim and get it ready, to run in NHRA. And he just doesn't want to do it. And then Lyle, kind of agreeing with you, Mike, he was saying that there was several other issues that they had all discussed that they thought was probably going to get addressed long before this, of course.
It's funny. There's a strong
here. He says, why a weight break? Well, it is to get more people to run them, but it's to get more people to run them by making the combination more competitive. If you roll out there in a 55 Chevy, 57 Chevy, any kind of nostalgia body, you are instantly giving up an aerodynamic advantage to these 2021 Camaros, which are just teardrop shaped. So it's they need something in order to get people to build them so that they are competitive.
Listen, I'm going to tell you guys that it's very odd to me, because for anybody who missed our show Monday night, I encourage you to go back and watch it, but not just from a self-promotion standpoint, but there was some great information and there was some real insight to kind of be gleaned from the conversation that we were having with not only Lyle and Doug Winters, but Craig Sullivan, even Clay Milliken, who was part of that conversation, had a lot to offer. It's to me, this whole thing is a little bit of a head scratcher. I'm always a guy, I'm about inclusion. I really am. I think that if you can find a way to get more people involved, that's almost always a victory. Almost always. The thing for me is that when I look around the industry, I really don't see a lot of these cars. There's not a ton of cars that are in screw blown trim that are the type that are going to go compete in a touring national series, because that seems to be the part of this conversation that's being kind of glossed over, is the fact that there's just not, it's a limited group of people that are willing to drive all over creation and go to Vegas and go to the East Coast, the West Coast, go to Gainesville, do many races, 2-3 races in a row. That's not for the faint of heart or budget. And I think most of the cars that fit this rule or could fit this rule combination are kind of committed to regional series or local series or East Coast series. And it really made me scratch my head. I agree 100% with you, Mike. I would have much rather see them make it more enticing to run a nostalgia bodied car. mean, for the record, what did it shake out? 25, 50 pounds. I mean, to get someone, to have someone like Stevie Jackson, and this is an extreme example, but bear with me for effect here, to convince someone like Stevie Jackson to build a 41 Willys or a 57 Chevy, you're going to have to give him an extreme reason to do it. I mean, it's going to have to be, I've kind of jokingly called it the Pro Charger treatment. You're going to have to let it be head and shoulders better than everybody else and then spend time pulling them back.
Which is actually the Pro Charger deal ran counter to how they've ever done any of these
I know.
changes. When turbos came in, when a lot of these other combinations came in, it was like, have at it, boys, and you know, work your way up to it. And then it was kind of the opposite approach with Pro Charger. And I don't think that worked very well. I think there were other things at play behind that decision. But this deal with the screw blowers is kind of like they're waiting to see who takes them up on it. And I don't know if anyone will.
I don't think we're going to. Interestingly, I've heard, and I'm not sure that I can confirm this, but I have heard from a very reliable source that Brandon Snyder, who's really become an NHRA front-running Pro Mod contender, he was in contention for the championship in 2020. He was a front runner again in 2021. A former Pro Extreme World Champion. I'm told that he's already committed to switching to a screw type blower. So that kind of drives home our point, though, Mike and T. This isn't bringing new cars to the class. It's just forcing guys that were already here to spend money switching over to something that I think in the case of Brandon Snyder, they're just more comfortable with.
How much
Brandon's raced with a screw blower a lot in outlaw.
We talk about the efficiency and cost effectiveness of the screw blown combination. How much of that for a guy like Brandon Snyder, who to my knowledge is by and large, you know, self-funded or strings together sponsors to be able to get to the track. How much of that are they tired of the cost of running a roots blown combination and keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak? And we talked about the sealed nature of the screw blown combination and the lower maintenance of it. How much do you think that factors in? Will we see guys switch just for that reason? Or like you're saying, like Brandon Pez comes to mind too. Guys that have experience with the 8th mile screw blown combination, will they give it a try just to see what they can do with it?
I just think, well, there's a couple of thoughts that I have about it, Mike, is that first and foremost, I agree with what you're saying, but this is still such a unique set of screw blower rules.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of these cars have ever been raced with a 390 rear gear. And that's not like you have to run that gear. So screw blowers by and large are they're all about RPM. You want to spin that thing. You want to make a bunch of boost, especially, and that's 100% how you would counteract that 75% overdrive is you would just turn the motor more, right? However, with a 390 gear, you're not going to be able to get that done. So what I think you're going to see guys do to make these things run is just pack a ton of compression in them. You're going to see compression ratios go through the roof, and I think you're going to see guys blowing these things up every run or every other run because they're going to have to run that much compression and they're going to have to run them that hard to try to keep up. Because I heard this secondhand, but we can probably verify it here in a few minutes with Mike Janis Jr. when he joins us at 3 p.m. But from what I understand, this combination, 390 rear gear, 2,740 pounds, and holy heavy, Batman.
Wow.
2,740 pound Pro Mods, going 250 mile an hour. I am told that this is a combination that will run mid to high 580s, best case scenario. So it's interesting because just as you said, Mike, this is something that is more traditional. The more traditional NHRA approach is introduce a new combination, have it extremely hamstrung, and then just give it a little to get it more competitive. I'm anxious to see what they're going to be able to do. We'll see Brian McCaddy. I don't think they're going to let him run like a 5-speed or a 7-speed or anything like that. I think isn't it like 3 forward gears? So I mean, it's a tough spot, I think, for these guys to run. And again, that secondary point, Mike, is a lot of these guys don't have that kind of resources to spend $25,000, $50,000 getting gear ratios, torque converters, different set,
to try it.
Just to try it once or twice a year. I don't really see that being
They're
likely.
All screwed,
Yeah. How cool would it be? Like, I just think the old school Pro Mod that I remember seeing recently that kind of stuck out to me is Brandon Pez's. What's it say on the side of that car? The 53 Corvette that he brought out, and Headhunter. I was going to say Sledgehammer, but Headhunter. That's an old car. I believe it was Thomas Patterson's car from back in the early 2000s, but a wild paint job, crazy graphics on it. Can you imagine that with a big screw blower hanging out of it and being competitive because it's got a 100-pound weight brake and because the screw blowing rules are competitive? Maybe we'll get there eventually, but that's what we need. We need that car in Pro Mod. And I can remember
badly
when it was on the track, the announcers, I forget who was on the mic at that time, were like, check this thing out. This is what Pro Mod used to look like. And that's what it could look like again. It needs to look like. I'm all for a all black Pro Charge 2021 Camaro, but I want to see that countered with a car like Brandon Pez's. Like that, to me, the matchup between those is what makes Pro Mod.
That's the magic. I mean, that's 100% the magic. And if they don't find a way to ensure people, because I mean, now's the time. And unfortunately for 2022, that ship's damn near sailed, right? I mean, a lot of these guys have already made their plans for the next season. We heard Doug Winters say Monday night on the Drag Illustrated Ride Along that he's already got a new car on order at Andy McCoy Race Cars, a new late model Camaro. It's a bummer because now was that opportunity to do something that could have encouraged some of those old 53 Corvettes, 63 Corvettes coming back into the category. And I think they need them really badly.
He said he had plenty of power, but he just ran out of car. I mean, that's exactly what he said to us, I believe.
I mean, it's I think that they're going to, I don't know. It's tough because I believe we saw the class start to rebound there at the end of the season. You know what I mean? Like we saw J.R. Gray win a race. We saw Lyle win a couple of races with a turbo car. We saw the Parity right there where we all want to see it. And I don't know. I just found it a little bit shocking. There's a couple, we've talked about this long enough, but there's 2 points that need to be made. First and foremost, the real head scratcher is that from what I understand, multiple people I've talked to and confirmed this with, guys, all the racers voted against this. Every single racer that was at this rule meeting or whatever, this shindig they had at Indy back at the U.S. Nationals with the NHRA. The NHRA circled the wagons. They got all the racers over there. They had all the crew chiefs. They invited media members, blah, 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 blah. Each team's individual PR representative. And they sat the racers down. They talked about the future and they asked some questions. One of the questions that were asked were, what do you think of including the screw blower combination? And it was unanimously voted against. Here we are. The complete opposite of that happening. Interestingly, the NHRA also posed the question of, would you guys rather have 10 races or 12 races? The group unanimously voted for 10 races. So I venture to say we'll probably see Pro Mod at all 21 or 22 of them next year.
Right. Yeah, that's the way it's going.
It's just a complete head scratch.
You can't. I'm all for not letting the inmates run the asylum. So I am for NHRA making their decision based on what they think and getting input from the racers, but not letting them make the final decision. But when you're in a position of trying to keep these guys happy and keep them coming back next year and increase your car count, that probably wasn't the way to go.
Hard to swallow because it feels like all they need is a little bit of communication, a little bit of back and forth. And again, I don't think you have to. I'm with you, Mike. You don't got to listen to you don't got to hang on every word they say. You don't have to just say, hey, carte blanche, whatever you guys want, you get. But I do think you need to at least make them feel respected and feel like their voice was heard. And in moments where it makes sense, lean into it. The last thing I want to say about Pro Mod, NHRA Pro Mod for 2022 is just address Drag Racing Central's comment about seeing the category swapped from quarter mile, which it's been since its inception in 2001 to eighth mile, much like the PDRA, NMCA Extreme Pro Mod, Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod Association, et cetera, the Carolina Pro Mod, Extreme Pro Mod series. What's your take on that, Mike? I mean, personally, I'll just interject this briefly. I just can't get on board with it. I just feel like that's the differentiating thing for NHRA Pro Mod is that quarter mile being like the ultimate, the last. It's kind of the final frontier. If you can go out there and do it there.
At this point, it's about all they've got as the differentiator. These other, the market's so saturated as far as pro mods, and we talk about it. It seems like a lot. The strength of PDRA, Midwest, Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod, all of these different series, they're all eighth mile now, and they've got their guys, and those guys are there for a reason. I don't think even if you do run eighth mile, you're not going to get those guys out. So again, if we're looking at quarter mile as the ultimate gladiator, final frontier, toughest schedule, toughest on your budget, toughest on parts, toughest on the driver, then it's got to stay at quarter mile.
However,
Plus,
I
they're
do
not
think
running-
if they switched it, we would have 40 or 50 cars. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind
Yeah,
you would
you would.
have an increase of participation. But I believe someone in here said it, and I can't remember what it was, but more cars doesn't necessarily mean better racing. I mean, one of the best examples I can come up with was like at the height of IHRA days. I mean, you remember like IHRA in Rockingham, and there was like 40 or 50 cars in pro modified.
It took like 9 hours to
literally
run a session.
You know, most of the cars didn't really belong there, you know, and everybody gets sensitive to commentary like that, but it was true. I mean, a lot of those cars were kind of regional quick 8 type cars that were biting off taking a pretty big bite going to a national event, a quarter mile national event to race. And I don't know that what we need is 40 or 50 cars. I just think the NHRA has to make some moves toward having like 20. If we could have 16 to 18 touring cars and then go into the East Coast, go to North Carolina for the 4 wides or what have you, and draw in 3, 4, 5, 6 regional cars, head to Texas for the Texas Fall Nationals in Dallas and draw in 4, 5, 6 regional cars. That would be so powerful. Same thing out west. Go to Vegas and grab a couple of those West Coast Outlaw Pro Mod guys or guys that go to the Streetcar Super Nationals. That is to me, that would be the magic recipe, if you will.
Well, speaking of magic recipes, let's talk about a potential rule package that we like, that's getting some really good feedback. How about this, the factory experimental deal?
Yes, we got to talk a little bit about factory experimental, and it looks like I screwed up one of the banners, so I'm just going to go without them, I think, for the rest of the show. Does this it? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
NHRA factory experimental back in NHRA. Reports indicate NHRA intends to formally introduce a new exhibition class for 2022. For the uninitiated, for people who have not been paying attention, this was big news Friday. When this came out, I was actually shocked a little bit that this hadn't circulated more. And it's funny because there have been a handful of people.
Maybe the screw blown deal was like a Trojan horse. Like, dude, let's cover everybody with this screw blown deal and just sneak this deal out there. Like,
I think that's kind of maybe what happened, man. I didn't ever think about it like that, but it's this category. Its designation will be AFX. It's basically, the way I've described it to people that have asked me about it, is some sort of child that's created from a marriage between pro stock and factory shootout. You're talking about supercharged small block late model performance engines, the engines you see between the frame rails of late model Chevy Camaro Copo editions, of drag pack Challengers, of Super Cobra Jet Ford Mustangs, put in between or put under the hood of tube chassis race cars that retain stock roof and quarters, OEM steel roof and quarters, factory wheelbase, racing on a 33-10-5 tire, incredibly, right, with wheelie bars. I mean, it's some sort of child created from pro stock and factory shootout. And personally, guys, I couldn't be more excited about it. I'm anxious to see, you know, how the pro stock teams react to it, because I have talked to some of them that kind of felt like it was a little bit, not a shot, but it kind of ruffled their feathers a little bit, saying that, hey man, pro stock's never maybe been healthier than it is right now. Now you're going to introduce this class that kind of competes with us. What gives? My guess is this could be the vision NHRA has for pro stock at some point in the future, and this is how they're going to trend that direction. But what's your take on the class, Mike? I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think it's gonna be badass. I'm all for stuff like this, where we get back to the roots of what the class was supposed to be. That's kind of what we just talked about with Pro Mod. Clutches, manually shifted, small tires, not heavy cars, but moderately heavy, with the factory shootout style engines. I think it's going to be a perfect marriage between the two. I think it's kind of an acknowledgement of some of the flaws of current pro stock and some of the flaws of current factory shootout. And I think it will kind of address some concerns with both of those. And it'll just be interesting to see where it goes. I really, hats off to NHRA. I think Lonnie had a big hand in this. Lonnie Grimm, he did a big sort of press conference with Brian Loans at SEMA. I don't know if you caught that, where he went through some of the details of it and some of their thinking behind it. But maybe we could drop that link in here, JT. But that really sort of explains the whole deal. I think it's going to be definitely going to be interesting next year. So I don't know what the participation will look like. I don't know how many cars we'll see out of this, but I'm excited about it.
It would be cool if the NHRA like went to every one of the NHRA Pro Stock like powerhouse teams, KB Racing, Elite Motorsports, on down the list, right? I mean, the McGahays, as well as Derek Kramer, went to all these teams, the Quadras, and asked them like, hey, would you be interested in building one of these cars, right? It would be, because it would be cool to see each of those teams field one of those cars or like kind of dip their toe into the water with it. I'll admit I've talked to a couple of team owners that don't seem to be upset about it or worried about it, saying, hey, we recognize it's not lost on us that you haven't been able to buy a muscle car with a freaking big block in it since the late 60s, right? I mean, none of these cars have 500-inch V8s in them. They're almost every late model performance car is a supercharged, turbocharged small block. Holden Heath asking in the comments, what are the restrictions? Basically, it's a factory style engine. So these are like the 630 horsepower Copo 5 small blocks with the supercharged Magnuson supercharger on them, as well as the small block Dodge and the small block Mustang 327. They're all that low 600 horsepower range.
We just dropped a link in the comments that it goes to kind of the video of the rundown of this class and has a little bulleted list of the general rules.
It's going to be, and 33-10-5 tires, wheelie bars. These cars are going to be like $1,000 or 1,000 pounds lighter than a factory shootout car. So these are going to be 6-second, 200+ mile an hour hot rods. I think it's going to be bad to the bone, man. I'm genuinely looking forward to it. And you guys all know how I feel about low slung door cars. You put one of those Copo Camaros in the weeds with a Liberty 5-speed, mind you, right? How about that? All these cars will be equipped with manual transmissions, clutches, manually shifted. This is going to be a driver's class. This is going to be a super fun category that, to be honest with you, this is the first time in my life that I've had dreams about, I want to race Top Fuel, or I want to race Funny Car, I want to run Pro Mod, but this is the first time that I saw a rule set and go, oh shit, I want to do this. Like I want to be a part of this. This seems like it could be truly special. And if at some point this becomes what Pro Stock is, I think I'm okay with it. There was a comment, and this could represent a newfound attempt to have some forward thinking and vision from NHRA, right? Because I saw Monday Morning Racer saying here, just because a class is healthy doesn't mean it doesn't need, there's not room for improvement. And I would agree with that. I wonder if this is maybe an instance where the NHRA is trying to get ahead of something, knowing that, hey, Pro Stock's in a good place right now. We've got great car count. We've got a lot of participation. But wouldn't that be a good time to introduce some changes? I mean, you certainly don't want to wait until there's 6 cars or 9 cars showing up to try to fix it and force everybody, those 6 or 9 guys, to spend a bunch of money. Might as well introduce these changes while the class feels healthy.
It's like marketing while sales are good, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's that old adage that you've got to keep the ball moving. I'm looking, has there been a schedule announced for these cars?
No, sir.
Not yet. Okay.
No. And I think that will be an interesting thing. I don't know if this is something that's going to be a 4 race, 8 race. I mean, is this something that we see at the Gator Nationals and at Indy and in Vegas or at the finals? I'm not sure. It does seem like these are going to be an expensive enough car that the NHRA is probably going to want to give these old boys an opportunity to race them. Like fairly frequently, not 10 or 12 times a year, but it would be cool to see 6 or 8 races. Holden Heath, any steel roof quarter or only late model stuff, 2019 model year and newer Chevy Camaros, Dodge Challengers, and Ford Mustangs specifically, Holden. So these are those 3 cars only. However, it says right in the rules that you can request a car be brought in or considered for inclusion. So it'll be a fun thing. It's going to be a really fun thing to see what happens and how they're going to treat it. I would love to see some shootouts or something like that kind of brought to the table to kind of see where this thing is going to happen, man. There are a lot of people pointing towards Pro Stock Truck because this is probably fairly significant historically, right? I mean, we talked about Pro Stock Truck when we first saw this come up. I think I made a joke about it. I think they've learned their lesson since then. I don't think we'll see anything like Pro Stock Truck again. Yeah, I mean,
as far as how that ended up.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I tell you what, guys, we're joined right now by the one and only Ron Capps. Ron, give us the thumbs up there in the green room if you're ready to rock and roll. Ron's ready to rock and roll. Let's go ahead and bring Ron Capps on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let's give him a round of applause. Ron Capps, what's up, buddy?
Hey,
What's up?
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, man, you look good. You look clean shaven, got the Napa hat on. I'm sure we're in like your $37 million Prevost bus. Nothing but the best.
I did just literally park it, and I was sweating my rear end off, and just jumped inside here with the air conditioning on and logged in. So,
well, hey, man, thank you so much. No, we appreciate you being here, man. It's cool to think about. I actually told Mike and JT this earlier today that, dude, Ron Capps is coming on the show. I got to be honest, man. At the end of the day, Wes Buck's the biggest drag racing fan alive. That's something that I like to preach, because I think in racing culture, people aren't as proud to be fans as they are in other sports. Have you noticed that? I mean, it's fun to tell people that you are a race car driver, but it's not as much fun to tell people that you're a race fan. You know what I mean? Like, I think people wish they were racers and aspire to race so much that they're not as outward or forward with their fandom as maybe they should be. I think it would be good for our sport for everybody to be, because how many times have you heard racers say, I'm not a very good spectator?
No, you know what the coolest thing is, and it's still to this day, I forget that I'm a professional race car driver. And I, you know, the kids growing up, my daughter and my son, going to their school or going anywhere and filling out any doctor's info, anything, and writing occupation, you're like, I get to write race car driver. And you always get this weird look from whoever the receptionist that takes it, and they go, yeah, you're an astronaut too, right? Like, it just doesn't seem real to write that. But it's been pretty cool to, you know, obviously, to say you're a race car driver and actually drive professionally and drive over 300 in these, you know, unbelievable machines is pretty cool.
You're a legitimate historian of our sport. You've been around it for a long time. And one of the things that I've always enjoyed in kind of the time you get on air is that you're so quick to highlight being a fan of these guys. You know, like you raced for Don Prudhomme. What an incredible story. Roland Leong. To think about being associated with those people. Ron, after all these years and having seen our sport kind of at its highs and at its lows, what do you make of drag racing here in 2021? I mean, it feels like, by all accounts, our sport is pretty damn healthy, right? It's on TV. You're racing 21 times a year, 22 times a year in front of sold out crowds. Do you feel good about the health of the sport right now?
I do. And mentioning that, it's great. I just got off the phone with Don Prudhomme, and it's weird that Don Prudhomme calls me and we talk and we just talk about stuff. And, if I told you who I was on the phone with in the last 12 hours, it would blow your mind. It still blows my mind. And the conversations I'm having with these people, and I'm hoping to get Snake out next year. We got some really cool plans. I think the sport's in good hands. I don't, you know, I used to go to these pro meetings when I first came up, and Kenny Bernstein ran the pro organization, which is basically sort of a union that I guess back then, the owners and drivers. When I came into Funny Car, of course, it was Al Hoffman, Jim Epler, Etchells, and all these guys. And you had Bernstein, and they had this organization. If you know, any of your viewers don't know, of course you do. And it was basically an organization they started much like a small union of drivers and owners to get together with one voice and talk to NHRA about different things: safety, changing the Christmas tree for drivers that were guests at one point in the Nitro car. I mean, just little things you'd never believe. Prices of parking in a spot. Fans don't understand how much a team pays to have a hospitality area in drag racing, which we don't see in NASCAR and IndyCar. You don't get that pit access and the closeness that hospitality brings that our sport gives. And I'm getting ready to transition into where I have to worry about it more and think about it more. But so I used to go to these meetings once in a while, and Bernstein, he at one point said, stop trying to, the rest of these people would stand up and say, look, we want to get as big as NASCAR. And he said, we will never be NASCAR. Stop trying to be NASCAR. In fact, we don't want to be NASCAR. We have a niche, and we have a sport that people can come, and you grew up on it. I met your dad in Eddyville, and we talked, and I grew up on it. My dad raced on weekends and is altered in a small track up here in California, in Santa Maria. And that was what we did on weekends. But we have a sport where every ticket's a pit pass, and it's not just something you hear on an ad. It's literally something you don't get to do. Obviously at IndyCar, NASCAR, shoot, at the NFL game, baseball, you can't get that access. I don't care how many tweets somebody from another organization puts out that they have the most access for possible. It's not even close to NHRA. So with that being said, you know, through COVID and through this year, I mean, we had many races this year that were sellouts. They just couldn't say it because obviously coming out of COVID.
Yeah. It's almost, I think sold out has become a bit of a bad word almost.
Yeah. And it's
a tragic thing, but
I just parked. I'm at the 1,000-foot mark here at Pomona. We got a small motorhome lot that some fans have, and I finally got on the list and got parked here. And literally in LA County, you got to show vaccine cards. I mean, all around this whole track. And yet at Dodger Stadium for the playoffs, it was completely packed with who knows how many 100,000 people. So that's still kind of weird going on. But these tracks, we've had these sellouts. We've had massive crowds. I've done a burnout on a Friday at some tracks I won't name, and it's packed on a Friday coming out of COVID. So I feel good about our sport. I mean, it could always be better. Yeah, there's things we'd like to have better. But I was enjoying your conversation with this class coming up, and it's going to be, you know, I grew up with Grumpy and Bill Glidden and Gap and Roush, and you know, those were the days. Dick Landy,
man.
You know, when you would go watch it, and you would then literally, your parents would go down to a showroom and try to buy that same car. So win on Sunday, buy on Monday, or sell on Monday was a real deal. And I can't wait for this class. So I enjoyed the insight you guys were talking about.
Thank you. Cool. It's exciting because one of the things I tell people about the sport of drag racing that kind of gets me jumping out of bed in the morning is that after all these years, we're into a sport for 70 years, and there's still so much opportunity. You know, there's still so much room for growth. I don't find that to be a bad thing. I look around me in the sport of drag racing and I see a tremendous amount of fertile soil. You can't say that about the NFL. You can't say that about baseball or basketball. I mean, they've pretty much done it all. They're in China. You know, they're around the world. It's a multi-billion-dollar entity. Drag racing's got a lot of room for growth, a lot of room for improvement, and that's not a negative thing. Some people get a little bit up in their feelings when you say there's room for improvement, but there absolutely is, and I think that's an exciting thing. You turn on television, there's cars doing burnouts, Ron. I mean, on primetime TV. And yeah, some of it's the street outlaws and no prep and whatever. Everybody has their own opinion. But man, cars doing burnout on cable television at 7, 8 o'clock a night, every night of the week, it seems like, feels like a victory to me. I'm with you, man. I think that there's always room for improvement, but our sport really feels like it's in a good place right now. I don't want to put pressure on you to make any announcements. I would never do that to you, but you have kind of teased that there's some news coming down the pipe and you've got a lot of business to handle here, right here and now before you worry about what's next. But are you excited about kind of the business of racing and having more of a hand in that type of thing, Ron? Because you've been one of the purest hired gun drivers our sport's had for a long time. Now you're about to maybe taste the other side of things. Is that exciting for you?
As we're talking, Don Schumacher's trying to call me. I had to hit ignore.
That we need to screenshot that or something. Get it in writing.
Are you having your usual party at the PRI show?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right.
Are you coming?
We will be making our announcement opening day of PRI. So
okay.
I'm looking for an invite to your party. I've not made it yet, and I got an invite every year, and so I'm looking for that. Usually
we'll lock it in.
Okay. Usually I have my fan cruise every year, and it's always the same time as PRI. So it will definitely it'll be opening day. It's going to be a lot of exciting news for our fans, especially my fans. So I can't say much more. I want to get through this weekend. What was your question beyond that? I forgot.
Well, just do you get excited about the business of racing? You know what I mean? You've been a guy that's, had to focus like entirely, just your focus was racing, right? Winning championships, winning rounds, in interacting with the fans and doing that. Are you excited to kind of just be talking about having unveils and having press conferences and doing all that type of stuff?
The crazy part, Wes, if I even told you how crazy it's been inside my head, and with everything going on since Saturday of Indy, September, I let Don know that I wouldn't be back in the capacity. I was basically a free agent, and I was looking at some other things, but still with the possibility of working out a DSR shop. But since then, the opportunities, the things that have been going on top of trying to win a championship. And then here we are, Thursday, tomorrow, today's Wednesday, leading into the last race of the year with a little bit of a lead and a chance to win a world championship, with the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes and the lack of sleep that I've had with just all the stuff, it's I never in a million years would have imagined it would be like this. And I could always see the stress on owners' faces, especially drivers' owners, Cruz, Wilkerson, guys that have done that. I have so much respect for what they've done just in the last couple of months. So I'm looking forward to the next step. I'm looking forward to it. It's funny because I always wanted to do what I'm going to end up doing here. And I never asked favors from these people throughout the years and just relied on just doing what I did and hoping someday I could turn it around and ask some of these people that I've worked for and done favors for and represented, my chance to sort of ask them for favors. And I haven't had to. I've had people come to me, and it's been crazy. So
that's they call that, I call it, and well, there's a book, and I tell it to, it's called magnetic sales. And that's when you, and this is kudos to you.
Well, I'm writing it down. Hold on.
There's a couple of books, Magnetic Sales and Magnetic Marketing, but it really just talks about being that guy or that business that has provided so much value to your community that you don't have to sell. They come to you because you've delivered so much value. And I'm trying to say that, like, Ron, what you've provided to our sport as a personality, a character, a championship contender, an ambassador for our sport, you've provided so much value. That's exactly what you freaking deserve, brother. I mean, they should be lining up to come support you because our sport needs, JT's making fun of me for talking about books. I'm a big book guy, but it's true, man. That's exactly what you deserve, is to have people come to you, because our sport cannot not have Ron Capps. I mean, you're the tip of the spear, brother. And it's a very important thing. And that kind of warms my heart to hear that you're having some success.
Yeah, it's so crazy right now. Oh my God. And the chance to win a championship at the same time is just, it's nuts. So yeah,
well, we got to talk a little bit about championships and stuff. But before we do, my co-host here on the show, Mike Carpenter, I'm going to swap you guys around. Mike, son of the legendary Pro Mod pioneer Charles Carpenter. Match racing is something that's near and dear Mike's heart. And we were talking about you and kind of preparing for the show earlier today in a production meeting. And he's like, we got to talk about match racing.
Yeah, the good old days. I think that's something that I wish would make a comeback, and that used to be kind of a staple for even guys like you early on in your career with the Skull car, the Cope car, when you were at Leong and you were at Eddyville Raceway. Did stuff like that. That's where I first met you. I was just a little kid then. But what's happened to that kind of stuff? And will we see, as these mega teams sort of break off and we see more of a fragmented situation as far as ownership and with the way the sport's going in the nitro ranks, will we see more of that kind of stuff come back?
Right now for us anyway, Bill Bader's really the guy that really the only guy that does that successfully. And I just got invited to next year's Night Under Fire, which is pretty cool. I've done it quite a few times, and he gets it. He still does it the right way. So it's funny because you don't want to wear these guys out. We have so many races going on right now that these crews are just wore out as it is. And the only way that really you can get over that is to pay them, a little bit, either, you want to say under the table, but just take care of the crew guys, because a lot of times, especially Not Under Fire, that's an off weekend that is right after a grueling amount of races. Me, I've been doing nostalgia racing a lot, and that is, I think, and I've gone back to Eddyville. I drove a couple nostalgia funny cars there. I've driven a fuel altered a few times, and next year we've got some plans with a fuel alter that my buddy put together, the old Burkholder car, and we're booking that in a few places where I'm going to go run some off weekends. So the chaos and all those races, it's just not like it used to be. John Forrest was racing every weekend when I was coming up through the ranks. And that was the reason I truly believe he won all those championships, is Coyle could figure out how to go down this road right out in front of my motorhome. Yeah. So there was something to be said about that. And you'd sell 20,000, 30,000 T-shirts that would be cash in his pocket. So that was a big deal too. So Yeah, I'd love to do more, man. I miss the old Spokane. Right after Seattle, we'd go to Spokane Raceway. Growing up on the West Coast, we didn't have a lot of match races because we had Fremont, we had Bakersfield, we had Orange County, we had Pomona. We had these races that I could travel 4 or 5 hours with my mom and dad and be to. So match racing wasn't as a big a deal because you saw those racers all the time anyway.
One of the things that I think came from those match racing days was like the emergence of big personalities, right? You saw people having to kind of lean into the showman part of their character or part of their persona to sell tickets, to get bookings, to sell merch, right? Sell t-shirts like you were talking. I think we've seen something interesting in 2021, and I want to get your perspective on this, Ron. It seems like we've seen some drivers kind of come out of their shell. Earlier this year, I pointed at Matt Hagan. I saw him, and obviously I don't want to say that I called it a breakout moment. I mean, this is a world champion racer, and I don't want to discount that. But on Thunder Mountain, he takes the win in the final round, and he's in the car whipping the wheel, climbing out of it while it's still rolling. The car comes around, coast to a stop, and he's grabbing the camera and yelling and screaming at it. I felt like that was a new version of Matt that personally I'd never seen before. Him kind of coming out, letting us know who he was, showing some emotion. We saw Leah Pruitt in this couple weeks ago in Las Vegas kind of let it all hang out a little bit, speak her mind. We've seen Brittany Force become a little bit more candid. What do you think's driving that? I mean, you're a guy who's always kind of worn your heart on your shirt sleeve. You've told fans and the media, anybody involved, exactly what you think and feel, for better or for worse. Do you feel like you're seeing some people kind of come out? Do you think is there something that has driven that bus? Has it been the emergence of some of these outlaws, the Stevie Fast Jacksons or the Big Chiefs or whatnot, where people know they've kind of got to let people in a little bit more? What do you think's driving that, or do you even agree?
Man, I just think, I think you're right. I think it's become harder to win, and you really, even as many trophies that I got, even winning those 2 races this year, it was like you felt like you won a championship, because it just seems like it's harder and harder to win as we've gone along here late. But it's been cool to see more personalities. And early in my career, I used to get out and get excited, and then I'd go apologize to whoever I beat in that final for jumping on my car and stuff. I really felt like I didn't want to, show off or be overboard. And I've always kind of been that way, but you try to calm it down before you get out of the car when you come around the corner. But, we had a media guy, I don't know, 10 years ago, have a big meeting in Indy, and he tried to get this, I don't want to say fake. He was trying to get more personalities and drum up these kind
of storylines and have everybody become their character
people to
a
get
little
mad
bit
at
more.
each other, like WWE type stuff, and kind of falsely get it going, and because he thought the fans would really love more of that Al Hoffman, John Force, whatever, we all know that was real, right?
Yeah.
So and that didn't last long, and I'm not even going to mention his name, but it was a good try at trying to bring out personalities. But our fans are too smart.
Yeah, it was inauthentic.
Oh,
right?
my God.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple people did it that weekend in Indy, and the fans lit them up. I mean, I don't know, Nitrometer or one of those sites was nothing but how fake it was. They didn't even know about the meeting we had. So you can't fool our fans. That's the first thing. And so I do love the personalities. I love, Brittany Force getting out. I love Leah getting excited. And some of these drivers, man, I did a little interview with Josh Hart, for some little thing. And I'm like, dude, do you even have a pulse? Like, he's just talking normally, gets out for his interviews. It's just so much. People are so different. It's crazy how some people can be so calm in situations like that, and other people can't.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I would argue, I'm like, hey, I want these guys jumping out of the car. I've always said that I want you to let me know as a fan how much this means to you. Like, it's like salesmanship thing. You can always tell how good an insurance salesman is by how much coverage he has on himself, right? If he has a lot, that means he believes in his product.
You're getting deep, Wes. You're getting super deep.
He's got these quotes, Ron. He's got
but if you climb, that's a good one. But if you climb out of your car and you're nonchalant about what has just happened, I'm going to be nonchalant, or maybe even a little less than nonchalant, right? And so I think that there's an infectious energy that comes from that enthusiasm that we need in our sport. Like, I think about you standing on the car, There
is a downside, and I get people all the time. They'll come up to me in a bar or restaurant or wherever, and they expect that guy,
Yes.
right? They want the guy that's on TV. And I'm normally kind of a shy person. I really am. I'm not very, I'm not super outgoing.
Yeah.
You sort of have to be at times when this job, you've got to learn to take it up a notch sometimes. And you don't have to learn to take it up a notch when you get out of the car. You already have it up a notch. But I literally have people all the time wonder where's the guy that I see on TV? You know what I mean? Like,
Everyone
and they
wants
want
an experience. They want experience.
Yeah, they want that person. Yeah. And it's like,
it's hard.
I mean, a few shots of tequila, maybe we can talk. But no, it's just crazy how, you get that interaction sometimes with the fans, kind of the other side of it.
It's interesting. Even I run into that because I'm kind of like that too. Like my wife always tells people, like, you'd be surprised. Most of the time, Wes is pretty quiet. Wes likes to read, you know what I mean? Wes watches weird documentaries, and then I go meet people and they're like, where's the hoorah, rocking and rolling? And it's like, well, we do that on Wednesdays. Like, we do that one day a week.
It takes all we've got to do this, and then we crash out.
Which day is the book club? Is that Thursdays?
Yeah, we're starting that next.
Okay.
We're starting that next.
I want to get on that
soon.
show.
As soon as JT learns how to read, we're going to let him in.
Oh.
It's going to be like 2025 or something, 26. It's going to take him a minute. Let's go to this weekend, a crazy weekend ahead of you. How do you kind of bottle this up and just focus on the task at hand? I mean, you have all these other things floating around. You got us talking about match racing and showmanship and everything. What's Ron Capps? What's your process look like for kind of getting in the mood?
Ironically, just getting here. My buddy Bill Winter just walked in, and he runs a nostalgia car. Been a longtime friend. We won here in July, right here at Pomona, and Guido, John Medlin, my whole team. I'm all about, sometimes it sounds funny. I mean, I might wear the same underwear that I wore on race day. Now, I washed them, right? My wife washed them, but it's weird how, and Michael and I'm sure his dad was the same way. We're creatures of habit, and at least I am, and most of the drivers I talk to are, and I don't want to change anything. We're going to dinner tomorrow night at a friend's place. Their mom and dad lives near here. We eat breakfast every morning at Norm's, which is Bracket Field, right across from the finish line here at the track. We got our motorhomes parked. We'll open a beer here in a little bit, and just everything. I like to try to do the same, and it really kind of takes what's going on out of the element for me. It's like Guido doesn't have to worry about the guys putting together the car. He can go out and make his calls. For me, I can take all of these surprises and all this stuff. I've got to worry about tickets and all the home game stuff you would think. So my perspective, other drivers might be different. For me, this is unique because here we are. We got a chance at a world championship, but it's fun to sort of. Tony Schumacher called me last night, and he's like, I said, dude, what do you got for advice? And he goes, you don't need advice. And I go, what Tony Schumacher can say of all those championships and wins, there's something to be taken away from anything he might say, right? There might be 90% of it might be hot air. And I joked with him. I said, but there's something I'm going to catch. He said, enjoy the moment. Just enjoy the moment. And I'm like, yeah, I was going to do that anyway, but it's good to hear somebody else's perspective. So, yeah, for me, it's sort of just doing the same thing and let things fall where they may fall. It's unfortunate sometimes it's a home game in a sense that there's all these other distractions of getting tickets. But when you win with all those home people here and the family and friends, like we did in July, you can't even explain how good it is to be able to win in your home area with your friends and family and share that with everybody.
Can you tell us about Pomona specifically? I mean, it's sometimes I think like drag racing was born on the West Coast, and for so long that was where it was at. Like all the hitters were from the West Coast, but we've seen drag racing like blow up on the East Coast. We've got Mooresville, North Carolina, which seemingly is quickly becoming like a hub of drag racing. Brownsburg, obviously, Indianapolis. What's it like to have this whole thing? I mean, I know it's your home track, but it's Pomona. What's it like racing there? I mean, there's something special about that place?
Oh my God. Yeah. It's, it's crazy. I'm looking out the front of the motorhome and we were literally in it. If you have never been, any viewers, to Pomona, put it on your bucket list. We are literally in a neighborhood. Everything has grown around this place. And I always joke because I don't know how old you guys are, but you watch the Monsters show when we were growing up, or Beach Blanket Bingo and the Frankie Avalon, all that stuff. Every little drag race scene from back then, all the old 50s, that was always all those shots, black and white, and all those great drag racing shots that they would have implemented in those old 50s and 60s movies were right here at this. So it's hallowed ground, but everything's grown around it. The downside is there's a road and a golf course at the finish line, so they cannot extend the shutdown area. And this is probably the gnarliest place where you actually stage the car and you're thinking more about making sure chutes are out and you get stopped than you are actually thinking about being catapulted 3.8 seconds at 330 miles an hour. So it's downhill. It's right at the cusp of the maximum that NHRA allows for a track to be downhill. Believe it or not, fans and viewers, there are tracks that are downhill. There's some that are level. And I want to say there's 4 or 5 feet difference from the starting line to the finish line in height. And that's how much downhill it is. So there's a lot of, distinct things. But the coolest thing for me is just how hollow this ground is in drag racing. And I sat in the grandstands and watched Joe Amato and Ormsby that year in the final run of the final day for the whole shebang, right? For the championship. Nobody knew Ormsby had cancer. He red lit in that final round, and then we all found out that he was sick behind the scenes, right? But that moment, I was in the grandstands with my parents. I just remember you could cut the air with a knife as they rolled up to stage these cars. It was just this iconic moment. So a lot of cool stuff's happened here. As a historian of the sport, how exciting is it for you? And we'll wrap this up. I know you got to bounce, and I appreciate your time very much. But as a historian and someone who has a deep appreciation for our sport's rich traditions and history, to have an opportunity to have that moment for yourself, Ron, to add that to your resume, what's that like? I mean, you're about to be a part of one of those, the air's thick enough to cut it with a knife moments. Yeah. And it's easy for people to say, okay, this first qualifying round on Friday is not going to be any different than Maple Grove was to kick off the countdown. First round Sunday is not going to be really any different than Bristol was a few weeks ago. Yet it is. Like, technically it isn't, but it really is. And so you have to judge how much you're going to let that into your mind, how much you're going to let out of your mind. Anybody that's driven at a high level like this with, you look up on the screen and you're staging the car, and the big screen has the owner and sponsors, and you see them standing behind the car, and you have 12 crew people to put this car together to give to you, not to mess it up, right? So it's a lot going on, and I've learned over the years of not winning a championship, sort of how to go through this scenario. And winning it in 2016 was finally something very cool. But I think all those years of going through that and being close has sort of hardened me, I guess. Or I'm just too stupid to even worry about the extra stuff. But it's good people around me. I mean, my wife knows I start stressing out all the media stuff I've done all week. It's Pomona week. It's championship week. My publicist, everybody is like, do you want us to stand back? We've got rock stars and actors and people coming out because it's Pomona, right? And she's like, do you want to kind of take it easy or have them come Friday or Saturday? And I said, no, we got to treat it as if it's the Winter Nationals, right? I don't want anything different. I don't want to seem like I'm all nutted up. And because if I feel like I'm nutted up, I'm going to drive like I'm nutted up. And I don't like driving that way. No, man, nobody likes to drive nutted up, especially when you got a championship on the line, Ron. So I guess closing notes here. I just want to say again, thank you so much for being a part of this. I know everybody that tunes in on Wednesday afternoons loves to get some insight and wisdom from somebody such as yourself. I guess we can't talk about any of the 2022 stuff. I just want to. How grateful are you? One of the things that we like to talk about here is how lucky we are to get to exist in the sport of drag racing. I believe this community is comprised of the salt of the earth. The greatest men and women I know are part of the sport of drag racing. After all these years, kind of tabling the fact that you've got another championship on the cusp this weekend, but just to arrive here at this moment, to be here and now, what's that feel like? It's crazy. But it's not, that's the thing. Like, I was kind of jotting down a speech because now we're not going to have the Hollywood Awards, and speeches will be 5 to 7 minutes right here at the track. They're going to have a little small ceremony. So you don't want to jinx yourself. In 2016, I didn't even write one until Monday, right? Really? I was nervous. And I was more nervous about a speech and getting up on stage than I was about driving the race car on Sunday. That's how much it tells you that I'm more of a person. I don't like that extracurricular stuff. I just want to get in the car and drive, right? But you can't anymore. So, but this championship, I've been thinking, is so much more for everybody else. It's like our fans and the people through COVID, and my sponsors and our family, because
So true.
both you guys know they ride the ride of what we do more than we do, right? Like I get to get in a race car and I get to do whatever I get to do, but the family, they go through that anxiety. Is something going to go wrong? Is it going to be okay? Is it going to win? They go through that roller coaster, and it's not like they're along for the ride, but it's what they want to do. But guess what? It's at times I feel like they have to go through it worse than we do. And so 2016 was great. I felt like I finally got a championship, but we're going to look back on life. We're all going to be 80 or 90 years old, and it's going to be, man, I went through that. But how about the people around us? Mike growing up with his old man racing. I mean, what if you went a different path and your dad was a plumber or whatever, and you just didn't have that avenue to go to drag races and hang out or hit golf balls at the back of the dealership like we did in Eddie-ville. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just hang out with people and things like that. Just you never think about. So to answer your question, I'm blessed, man. Like it sounds cliche, but just I'm so happy, and I cannot wait until Sunday morning and just get it over with.
It's exciting, man. Well, Ron, you be careful, all right? We care a lot about you. We're so excited for all that you've accomplished and all that I believe you'll accomplish in the future. You stay out of trouble this weekend, and maybe we can drag you back on here and celebrate sometime soon.
Yes, I'm down for that.
Thank you, brother. Oh, and hey, we will see. We're saving you a spot at the party.
Yep.
Drag Illustrated After Hours. Ron's gonna make his big unveil, and then we're going to have our big unveil at the party that night.
And the book club. Don't forget.
And the book club.
In the book club. He's
send you
in the
links.
book club.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ron.
Ron.
We appreciate it, brother.
All right, man. Thanks, guys.
Holy crap, Mike. Seriously,
Man.
JT, real quick. Did you guys wrap your head around the fact we got Ron Capps hanging out with us on
Pretty
the
cool.
World
That was
Cup?
awesome, man. That was awesome.
He's definitely, after that, he's got to be your pick for this weekend. Hometown race, all the pressure at Pomona, all the history there. He's been, wheeling it all year, and definitely my pick this weekend.
Man, I got to tell you.
That was great.
He's got great energy, right? I mean, it's hard not to cheer for him, even like through the internet. He's got like a real, so much optimism, so much positivity, but cool as a cucumber simultaneously.
It's interesting to hear him say that he's an introvert, because I always think of him as one of the most extroverted drivers out there. But
Wes tried to say he was too.
Yeah, right.
Oh no, but when I'm at home or whatever, or whenever I'm cool to go be alone.
Sometimes
when I'm not around anybody, I'm really quiet.
Right.
No, whatever.
A lot of times you'll see that though, if you're an introvert, but if you're in your element, like Wes is in his element on the show, Ron's in his element in the car, but he said he doesn't like to give interviews or do all the media or give a speech at the award banquet. So it's like when he's in his work, he's on, but then in the outside elements he wants to be more of an introvert. So very interesting to hear him say that. I would have never
This
guessed
off season we need to do a long form interview with him.
Yeah, man. There's a bunch of those.
I'll look it up. Probably one of my favorite covers of DI was the cover where we had Ron on it. That was an awesome.
I think that was the best cover. One of the best covers we've ever done, man. Great dude. And I tell you what, speaking of great dudes, we've got a ton of ground to cover here on the Wes Buck Show today. I've got a couple things I just want to make note of quickly. As you all know, but it's important to remind you, the Wes Buck Show is brought to you each and every Wednesday by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing equipment, from drag chutes and seatbelts to fire suits, gloves, and blankets. All 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com and make sure you tell them your friends at the Wes Buck Show sent you. Maybe say that I did. I was actually hanging out at Stroud Safety first thing this morning up in Oklahoma City. Had a great time. Got to see some of this safety equipment being made firsthand. I also want to throw it out there to our friends at Sand Haulers of America. If you've got a truck and you're an over-the-road driver and you're looking for a load to haul, log on to SandHaulersOfAmerica.com and they will fix you up. If you're not hauling frac sand, you should be. The Wes Buck Show is also presented to you by our friends at EliteHP.com, the world leader in used race cars, parts, and equipment. Check out their entire inventory at EliteHP.com, and of course, our buddies at Flow Racing. I do want to, after this this next segment, guys, remind me to show the commercial, because in case you didn't know, Flow Racing will be streaming live again this coming weekend at Ozzie Moya's World Street Nationals in Orlando, Florida. This is the race, in all fairness, that kind of started it all. I mean, this is the race that pretty much kicked off all the outlaw door slammer craze. I mean, drag radial racing largely born there. Outlaw 10.5 became Outlaw 10.5 on that quarter mile in Orlando. So log on to flowracing.com. You can subscribe. It's $150. You watch over 60 races a year, anywhere you want, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week access. Watching drag racing live, it's kind of unbelievable, especially if you think about a time where you can watch the World Street Nationals. I mean, this is I don't mean to derail us, but that is a race that race is one of the reasons Drag Illustrated exists, because that was one of the races that I had been to. And I said, man, this is crazy that races like this aren't celebrated. Like, where's the magazine writing about races like this? This is crazy. This is the best race I've ever been to. Mm-hmm. And that was largely the catalyst that kind of put the idea in my head to get this magazine going. And here we are now. And to think about that very race, which was a kind of an industry secret. It was a hardcores event. It was where the hardcores went. To think about it being streamed live here in 2021, that's an amazing thing, man. So log on to flowracing.com, get subscribed, join the movement, and support the sport of drag racing. Guys, let's bring on both of our guests simultaneously, and then we will drag on our buddy Mark Pawuk. I apologize to everybody. We got a little bit behind. Ron Capps came on early. I hate to tell the guy to come back. So Mike Janis Jr., Lyle Barnett in the house, two of the biggest names in quarter-mile Pro Mod drag racing. I'll introduce you guys both. Mike, you guys had a hell of a year. This season started as heartbreak for Wes. When I heard that your dad wasn't going to be able to continue driving, you know how big of a fan I am of you and your father, and I was heartbroken for a while. And obviously doing what's got to be done, but this marriage of yourself, your father, and J.R. Gray, huge news. It's been a fantastic thing to see unfold, and you guys have had a great season. Had a couple scary moments, one namely in Denver. Big-time rebound, win a race in Bristol, unbelievable. And Lyle Barnett, the feel-good story of the summer, I think, scoring 2 victories in the E3 Sparkplugs NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series to kind of cap the season in Dallas and then in Las Vegas. Welcome to the show, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
The reason, and we'll bounce around here a little bit, but Mike, one of the reasons we talked over the weekend, thank you. I bothered you on a Sunday. I felt like a jerk. Or maybe it was Saturday. I can't remember. I'm like, well, I'm going to call him. I got to know what he thinks about this screw blower thing. Let's kind of dive right into it. The reason I wanted to bring you on, Mike, is you're an expert. You're someone we could bring on that's got a wealth of knowledge about all these different combinations. I mean, you've made your living, you've made your mark on our sport with a root style superchargers that you make yourself. We lost him.
Nope.
Oh, yeah. Shoot. We just lost Mike Janis. Okay, I'll pivot. Don't think I'm not prepared to pivot. Lyle, you just scored another W. You got a shiny black shiny black Wally to commemorate the 1000th NHRA national event win. Just tell us a little bit about it, man. I mean, we've talked to you a lot. You're a friend of the show. You're basically a co-host here. What do you make of doing it twice here in 2021?
You start the season just hoping to qualify, right? You dream of winning, obviously, and we go to Dallas and get the job done. And obviously we're pumped up, right? We've got a car that hasn't been out in a year and a half, a brand new car to me, not necessarily a brand new car to my team, but something they haven't raced in well over a year. And Justin, and Anthony quickly got their heads wrapped back around the combination, and we got it done in Dallas. So we go to Bristol, obviously a little confident, maybe cocky a little bit. And Mike Jr. will attest to this, though. They are the most humbling pieces of equipment on the face of this earth. Just when you think, and you hear it all the time, but it's very true. Just when you think you've got it figured out, they'll smack you right in the mouth and bring you back to reality. We go to Bristol and we don't run good at all. We qualified somewhere near the bottom, went out first round, back in the dumps, but we go to, don't have time to test. We spent a couple hours on the dyno the Monday of Vegas. We go to Vegas, qualifying the 5 spot, and found ourselves in another final against the Janis team and J.R. Gray, and we had a great race to the finish line. But just unbelievable, man. I never dreamed I would win one in my first year, much less 2. And I give a lot of credit to my team. those guys have had a rough year as I have as well, and they stuck with it, and we brought a new car out and got the job done twice in the last 3 races. So I just can't thank them enough. Everybody at Elite and everybody at Modern for sure.
It's been an amazing thing to watch, and I think it's a unique opportunity for us to have you both here on the show today, and I appreciate your time. One of the things that has happened, and it's been the talk of town, like I said, Mike, and before we lost you, I was saying that you've made your mark on the sport of drag racing by way of root-style superchargers, ones that you guys build yourself in-house. But the NHRA kind of set the drag racing world on fire Friday, announcing that they would be screw-type superchargers would no longer be prohibited in the NHRA Pro Mod drag racing series. And it's unique having you both on here because I believe you both were part of a conversation that was had between the NHRA and the race teams back in Indianapolis at the U.S. Nationals over Labor Day weekend, where this was kind of proposed to the group. Do you think we should bring screw-type superchargers into the fold? Unanimously voted against. Here we are the second week of November, and it's a reality, the exact opposite. So I guess, Mike, just how surprised were you by this announcement?
I mean, honestly, shocked to tell you the truth. We all sat around. There was, I don't know, what was there, 22 of us in Indy. We had the president of NHRA, head of tech. The top 5 players of the NHRA were there at the meeting. And, we had a nice meeting. We were all talking through things and, what can we do to keep the class, make it better, things like that. And, different things that we might attract more cars. And one of the topics came up was screw blowers. And, you get a test, Wes. I have the best interest of the class no matter what it is, right? I'm the one that, I said let the 959s in for the nitrous cars. Let's try to get more cars. So whatever is best for the class, I think is what we need to do. And it's not just about us trying to get the rules made for us to try to get an advantage on somebody. But like I said, we had that meeting, screw blower topic came up and everyone kind of got a little antsy, what's going on. And my question point blank was, what is your reasoning for trying to do this? And the response that I got was, well, it's a cost thing. And right away, that answer, didn't sit too well with me because, by the time you're done buying a screw blower, injector head, by the time you're done doing the whole package, you're gonna be over 40,000 deep in this deal. So it's not. It's as far as a costing, there's absolutely zero truth to a costly deal. It's going to be just as expensive as anything else. Stevie Jackson spoke up right away and said, his lease blower program was one of the cheapest, deals, his program. So again, like when I heard it, I kind of thought it was squash because they said, that's all right. That's it. We won't talk about it anymore. And, I got a couple phone calls last week and said, hey, screw blowers are going to be allowed. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not true. And they rattled off the rules to me. And mind you, I'm myself, Justin Elks, Dean Marinas, and Eric Dillard are supposed to be on a committee where we find out the rules like 20 minutes before everybody else does. Is how it kind of works. And I said, oh, that can't be true. And sure as heck, man. Within a couple hours, there's the rules, screw blowers, and it just totally took it by surprise. And I don't know.
Do you think, if you had to identify, and I'll kind of ask both of you guys this question, the biggest conversation that we've had, and I want the viewers out there to know that the reason we talk so much about Pro Mod is that it has a unique fan following. We get tons of emails, tons of direct messages on social media. This is a class that has a fan following that's unique in our sport. A lot of people care about pro modified drag racing. So I think it's worth exploring these topics. What do you guys think the answer is? We talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the show. What is the participation? What's the answer to that question? Do you guys have strong opinions? If it's not, including screw type superchargers and new combinations, what's the trick that the NHRA needs to put out there to bring more cars to the table?
I think that addressing some of the things that we thought should be addressed that didn't get addressed, and the first and foremost being lighten up some of these older body styles. Let's offer weight breaks for something other than a 50s Mercury or a older, a 50 model Corvette or, whatever. Like, let's start, maybe give them a little more off, and let's start at 68, or something. I mean, something to do with body styles to attract more of a diverse field of cars, right? Because you guys talked about it before Mike Jr. and I came on today, that we're very rapidly headed towards an all new body style Camaro class, and you're already seeing it across the board on the internet. It's just another form of pro stock. They're headed for pro stock, and I don't really think you can say those people are wrong, because we're all building the same. I mean, Doug Winters with a beautiful Chevelle, he's ran that thing for years, told us just Monday night, I'm building a new model Camaro because aerodynamically my Chevelle is at a disadvantage, and you can't blame him for that, right? So that being one thing, Stevie was one who felt very strongly about it when we were in the meeting in Indy. Several others, Mike, I think you guys maybe even agreed. I know we agreed that some of these safety rules, in particular the transmission enclosure, we talk about it all the time. Offering a waiver, maybe not necessarily going away from it, because it is a safety rule at the end of the day. And obviously, first priority is making sure that all of us as drivers are safe. But that's a huge financial burden for some of these cars who aren't going to run the whole season, that just want to join us on a regional level. Like, there's no reason we shouldn't go to Charlotte, Gainesville, especially VMP, and not have 25 to 28 cars. There's no reason. Like, there's so many pro mods around here that fit, with the exception of a couple safety rules that are financially, it's a huge hit to them just to run a race, maybe 2 a year. So we talked about offering a waiver, like a two-race amendment, whatever you want to call it, and allow these guys to come over and race a little bit, and none of that was talked about. Obviously, Mike Jr., Justin Elks, Dean, and Eric Dillard didn't get a call about that. We allow a screw blower at 75 over at 2,740 pounds, and I personally was like, there is no way in Hades that anybody's bringing that to the racetrack. I since found out yesterday that there is, I'm not going to say who, because I'll let them talk about it. There is going to be at least one, not Brandon Snyder, but so maybe we will see a car or two, but I still don't think you're going to see that car or those two cars travel the entire series, or pick up a screw blower in Vegas or a screw blower, in maybe in Indy or whatever. I mean, I just don't think that what they've done is going to do anything to help car count, which is the hot topic around NHRA Pro Mod right now. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of have the same feeling. I mean, going back to body style. I mean, mind you, we have a new body style, and we're building a 68 Camaro right now as well. But I believe, we know that a 68 Camaro, a 69 Camaro, a Chevelle, none of those cars are equal to a new Camaro, right? So when play somebody, I mean, 25, 35 pounds, just something. And somebody like a 49, 50 Merc, I mean, 50 pounds, that's not enough. I mean, those guys need to be 100 pounds. Brandon Pez with a 53 Corvette. I mean, that's got to be 100 pounds. I mean, 50 pounds is not enough to entice. So, I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, is the, a 49 Merc is no doubt way slower than a new Camaro. But I mean, your 68 Camaro, 69 Camaro, they're about 1 to 1.5 mile an hour slow on the other end. To the 8th mile, they're actually 100% equal, because we run both of them, but they're definitely a little slower on the other end, which I get. And the big thing is we
lost your audio there, Mike. 1 second, buddy.
Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay.
We lost you, Mike. Check your settings here real quick. I don't know why.
Hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the car count thing, the biggest thing to keep people attracted, obviously, is a schedule. Where we're gonna have these races. Everybody likes to go to Vegas, no doubt about it, right? But logistically, for what we're doing, doesn't make sense for us to be in Las Vegas to have full fields, right? I mean, I love it out there, but if we're gonna have 10 races, we need to go where the 10 core cities are and where the people are going to go. I mean, if someone like a Scruggs is going to go out to Vegas, he's not, and so I think the schedule plays a big part in it. And again, like Lyle said, the safety deal is is one of the biggest things. Getting these guys to cross over. I mean, the amount of safety stuff that we have on these cars, we need some sort of, free gimme card for a couple of races to get these, 2, 3, maybe even 4 regional guys at these races. And I don't think we're really looking for, 30 cars. I mean, 16 to 22, 23, 24. I mean, that'd be really great and
Healthy, very strong.
At every single race.
Yes.
Like, at all.
I mean, if we
very
could
healthy,
arrive at a
yeah.
place where there was 16 to 18 like touring pros, and then we had the class complemented in various locations by 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever the case may be, regional hitters, that would be such a magical thing to happen. Kind of getting off like some of the positive things. I don't want this all to smack negative. How cool has it been to see the Parity kind of come back into the picture? I mean, we were all concerned. There's been all these rule changes with the Pro Charger cars, but to see the way the season ended, despite the things we were just talking about, I mean, you got to thank God, man. I mean, it's amazing to see Dallas, I believe it was, a turbo car, a blower car, a nitrous car in the semifinals, and a Pro Charger car. We've seen fairly good parity here to close the season. How good do you feel about the class from a performance standpoint right now? Kind of just ignoring the screw blower deal, how do you feel about the 4 primary combinations that exist today?
I mean, you have to give hats off to everyone involved with making the rules net. I mean, 4 power adders, completely different. I mean, we know a turbo car has 4,500 horsepower, but but point being, to be able to get 4 combinations that close, I mean, that is very, very impressive. It's hard to do. It took a while to do it. I believe everyone's within 500s at the very most, which I think is a really, really good spot. I mean, we're never going to be perfect. Atmospheric conditions change in that, but I think, hats off to everyone at the NHRA and everyone involved in trying to get the rules as close as they can, because the job's definitely been done. At least I think it has.
One of the coolest things to see in 2021, and I think it's interesting because it seems to be happening in every pro category, is drivers have more of a hand in what's going on out here than I think they have in a long time. I mean, we're seeing reaction times come into play more so than perhaps ever, from Top Fuel to Pro Mod and everywhere in between. Pro Stock, of course, Lyle Barnett being one of these guys that have established himself as a killer lever. What do you make of that? I mean, you've got one of those yourself behind the wheel. Mike J.R. Gray has had an incredible year here in 2021. It's been great to see this big name outlaw grudge racing guy burst onto the scene in pro modified, pro level pro mod competition. What do you make of the driving that's on display? Jose Gonzalez going teens or better seemingly every time he gets in the car. I mean, you've seen this from a very young age. You've seen pro mod from start to finish, essentially start to where we are here. The driving has come a long way, eh? I
mean, it's unbelievable to see someone like J.R. Gray hop into a big tire car. Never drove a big tire car, never drove quarter mile. Same deal with Lyle and these guys. I mean, it's mind blowing. I mean, there's so much going on in these cars. To see these guys come in and do the job that they have done and act as professional as they have in this whole deal. I mean, it's refreshing for the sport. It really is.
I think it's fantastic because there has been a belief system in years past that these cars are fully automated and you can get in one and drink a Diet Pepsi and eat a bag of Cheetos and nothing's going on. But it's I've always felt that to be kind of a counterproductive message. I mean, we need to be promoting how intense this is and how difficult these cars are and how much is going on. One of the coolest things that I think's happened all year was when Tony Stewart came on here and in many other places talking about how it's a lot. Like when he was first getting acclimated to the sport of drag racing, which I would say he still is, he was overwhelmed by the sequence of events, the events that have to be done consistently and perfectly and precisely time and time and again. I mean, I think it's good for our sport to talk about how hard this is to do. Do you agree with that? I mean, both of you guys, I mean, are in a position where you earn your living drag racing. I mean, we need this to be known as something that not everybody can do. Because if everybody can do it, it's not special.
No, it's definitely a science.
Yeah. I mean, I've always considered pro stock to be, and they probably maybe still are, but I've never driven one myself, which I hope to do in the future. But I've always considered those the hardest cars to drive, right? They are, when you look at a pro stock field, they're usually separated by less than a tenth, 1 through 16. Anybody can win from any position, and it's super driver intensive. You've got to leave on time. You've got to hit your shift points on time. And being associated with Elite Motorsports, I'd talk to, Erica and TJ and Aaron Stanfield and Marty and Bo Butner when he's there, and they talk about, I was, a tenth late or a few hundredths late on the 1-2 or something, and it killed it so much out the back, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. But you saw, at the beginning of the year, maybe not quite as tight, but when we started getting towards the end of the year, the Pro Mod field was just as tight, and races were won and lost on the starting line. People are going red because they know they've got to cut the tree down if they're going to have a chance. And I think the class as a whole, and it happened pretty quick, tightened up there towards the end of the year, and it was a driver's race. When you've got a team like the Janises, who for I think 3 races in a row looked like they were out there with their hands over their eyes, just couldn't qualify, show up for first round of eliminations, and are just hitting, moonshots. They're low for the event some of the times, took out Ricky from the bottom spot 2 races in a row, and I was told from the beginning, like, you don't ever count the Janises out ever, and they proved that to me all year long, won a race, finished in the top 5, but that's what it takes. I told you maybe my first interview this year, Wes, that you can't be good. You have to be great, like good just doesn't cut it here. And when you got crews like the Janises and Justin Elks and Steve Petty tuning 2 or 3 cars, Stevie Jackson and Billy Stockland, Frank Manzo and Mike Castellana, like those are all your top names,
Legends.
And you got to come out here and be on your game if you're going to win and run good in this class, period.
It's an amazing thing to kind of watch unfold. Looking forward to 2022, Mike, and we'll cut you loose. I mean, are you feeling good about 2022? I mean, you obviously have a hot rod of a driver. You've got a hot rod of a race car. I mean, I was going to try to pin you down and see if you could tell us how you've got, like, far and away the fastest roots blown car on the planet Earth, but I'm sure you're not going to give those secrets away.
No, I mean, we're looking really forward to 2022. I mean, JR he did a phenomenal job all year. I couldn't be more proud of him. I mean, more than just a driver for us, and he's turned into family. So we're looking forward to 2022, making a run of the championship. And like I said, we started out really good the year, really good in Gainesville. I thought we had a chance of winning the championship early, and we had a couple little hiccups, and and then we finished. We really had a good shot at winning the last 4. But like I said, good momentum going into 2022, and cars on jacks right now, and not even going to touch the thing. Just going to sit there and hopefully let go of the button, and not do anything stupid. We know better than that at this point.
Right.
Now, you guys clearly have a hot rod, and it's great to see, man. It's great to see you guys in the thick of things. Closing notes, and we'll let you go. I just want to know, how has your dad handled this transition from being the guy behind the wheel to the guy overseeing the operation? You have established yourself as one of our sport's leading crew chiefs and tuners. I mean, I believe you were crew chief of the year in 2019, right? Identified by the NHRA, an incredible honor for such a young man. But how has Pops handled this transition?
He's handled it really well. I mean, believe it or not, he just went to his doctor's appointment a couple weeks ago. He's been totally cleared to go back to driving if he wants. Off the blood thinners, medication starting in January. When you ask him, do you want to drive again, or how do you feel? I mean, you get
Really?
It's yeah. I mean, believe it or not, I mean, he is having a lot of fun with Jared driving the car right now. He's taking it. I mean, he's the leader of the gang. He's the one, he's doing a lot of the maintenance, and I mean, he is just full boat. He's on it. And I mean, to see that, I didn't know how he was gonna react, with somebody else driving the car. But to see him treated the way he has, and I mean, like, just no different than if he was driving the car right now. So it's just it's been a blessing, and I think he's, like I said, he's having more fun now. There's no pressure on him. That's what he always says. I don't have to worry about no pressure anymore. Pressure's all on JR right now. JR and people, now it's tuning the car. So
Well, it's an awesome thing, man. And Mike, thank you so much for helping us kind of make sense of some of these things going on in the world of drag racing right now. I always appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure to talk to, and I hope we get to see you at PRI coming up here in like 3 or 4 weeks.
I'm gonna surely try to be there, buddy.
All right, brother. Stay out of trouble. Get back to work.
All
See you,
right.
Mike.
Thank you for
See you,
having me.
Mike.
Bye, Lyle. Thank you. Congrats again, Kyle.
Thanks, dude. You guys too.
Lyle, you hang out for a little bit. You going to hang out for a little bit? And we'll,
Yep.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to, as we head here into hour 3, it's unbelievable. 3 hours in the Wes Buck Show every Wednesday afternoon. Again, all of you that tune in, I hope you know how much we appreciate your presence, your involvement, your engagement, your comments. It makes all the difference in the world. It's tons of fun to talk to Ron Capps, tons of fun to talk to Lyle Barnett and Mike Janis Jr., and it's going to be a ton of fun to talk to Mark Pawuk. But the real magic here is your involvement, your engagement, the shares, the likes, all the commentary makes all the difference in the world. I feel like I learn a little something about the sport of drag racing or the world in general every week just by paying attention to the comments. So thank you all very much for being here. Of course, thanks to all of our sponsors. You see them over our shoulder on the bottom corner of the screen: Stroud Safety, Flow Racing, Sand Haulers of America, Elite HP. Thank you guys all for making this show possible. Ladies and gentlemen, as we head into this 4 o'clock hour, I want to bring to the show one of, I think, just an all-around incredible human being, a guy that's been good to me for no reason. And that's always something that resonates to me. He's always been polite. He's always been friendly, outgoing. He's always lent an ear, lent a hand, offered insight and advice. And he's also a drag racing legend. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the one and only Mark the Cowboy Powick. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, Wes. How are you, buddy?
That was a weak clap. I didn't get any clap from Mike or Lyle or Murder Tundra. I'm going to get this queued up, Mark. So next week, whenever we have our first guest on, I'm going to have like a roaring applause. Roaring. Deafening. Oh, my goodness,
you know what?
buddy. How are you?
Old. Nobody remembers me anymore, man.
Oh, I certainly remember you, man. I think that you're kind of having I think you're really making a dent right now. I think it's so cool still seeing you at the racetrack. We just heard from Mike Janis Jr. about his dad not really missing driving a Pro Mod car that much. I'm curious, being at the track as often as you are, racing factory shootout and doing all that you have as part of the Don Schumacher Racing factory kind of team, do you miss Pro Stock?
Can I be honest?
Yes, that's what we want you to do.
I do. I do not miss Pro Stock at all.
Really? Is it
excited
certain parts of it that you don't miss, or just all of it?
Most of it. You know, it was a grind. Yeah. It got to be a real grind for me at the end. The class has changed direction a lot, in my personal opinion. It's taken the tuner out. It's, you know, a driver that was a good driver that could give feedback to crew chiefs. I started before the days of computers, so a good driver was a good driver. You could feel, you knew where your shift points were, and it not take anything away from the class because it's ultra competitive. You know, the people that are competing in Pro Stock are doing a fabulous job, from the young kids today to the older people. You know, and I was one of the young guys, and obviously as I left the sport for a while, became one of the older guys. But I just don't really miss it. I love the class I'm running right now, and I'll be real honest with you, Wes. I'm kind of excited about it if it's something that we can run. It's not going to be cost prohibitive.
I'm super excited about it myself, and I want to bring everybody up to speed. For the viewers that maybe aren't fully aware of what's going on, I penned a little article for dragillustrated.com last week when this news broke, and I was kind of surprised because it felt like this is something that everybody would have been talking about. I believe the NHRA did a pretty good job of keeping this somewhat under wraps. I'd heard a few people mentioning that, hey, I think there's going to be a new class coming, and NHRA is talking about doing this new class. What do you think? But I want to bring everyone up to speed. Basically, we were able to confirm Lonnie Grimm, NHRA Tech Director, went public with this at the SEMA conference alongside Brian Loans. But basically, the NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series will contest a new exhibition eliminator in 2022. The division will be home to 2019 model year and newer manufactured automobiles with production engines of the same make. Currently accepted makes and models include Chevy Camaros, Copo, of course, Dodge Challengers, drag pack like the one that our guest Mark Pawuk drives, and Ford Mustang Super Cobra Jets. These cars will compete on 33-inch tall, 10.5-inch wide tires, will feature OEM steel roof and quarter body panels, but allow for full tube chassis. The minimum weight for these cars is 2,650 pounds. They'll have 5 speeds in them and clutches. I too am very excited about this. Have you, I guess first and foremost, did you know this was coming, Mark?
There have been rumors about it, and we've discussed it internally amongst ourselves, how cool it would be to have one of these cars that we're currently competing in that would weigh less, have 5-speed transmission. And then, there has been talk, Wes, but to be honest with you, I wasn't real privy on it. And I'm kind of surprised, actually, that it came out so late in the year. I can understand NHRA went in this direction, but I think saying they're going to compete in 2022 is too quick, because with the issues going on with our supply chain right now in this country and part availability, I'm not sure, for even people that really would like to compete in this class in 2022, what kind of options are going to have to be able to get these cars built and get them out on the racetrack.
I wondered that myself, because I think that the ship has kind of sailed for getting one of these cars built, before the, oh my goodness, at least maybe middle of 2022. So it will be interesting. Who do you think the NHRA was going after as far as racers? I mean, do you think that is this what Pro Stock may look like in the future? Do you think they were going after racers such as yourself that have contested factory shootout cars? Who's the target for this category?
My guess is one of the reasons that maybe they've gone in this direction is cars have gotten so fast, close to that 750 mark, where they are, not going to be able to legally run with the chassis that we run and the weights the cars weigh. And in my opinion, the speed that we're going now with a 3,575, a 3,600 pound car and a 9-inch tire is dangerous. That's a lot of weight. You're moving them at fast speed. I mean, I ran over 180 miles an hour. In St. Louis, I ran really fast, and
wow.
We see these kind of performance numbers. Actually, it was 180 in St. Louis, but you see these kind of performance numbers, and then trying to get these little tires. And I think the way this class has evolved and the amount of participation that we've got in this class, I think it's the next logical step moving forward. Continue to keep the fans involved, and also to have all 3 manufacturers involved, which I really think that's been a strong point of this class, Wes, having
yes, sir.
Ford, Chevy, and Dodge again in our sport of drag racing, because it hasn't been that way in Pro Stock. And don't get me wrong, Pro Stock is an ultra competitive class, but they're pretty much GM cars. I mean, no matter which body style you run, you're pretty much running a GM powered plant. This gives the opportunity, in my opinion, to have the manufacturers be able to get back involved again and make our sport stronger.
What do you think? You think about a car such as yours. You just talked about it running, mid 7s at 180 thereabouts. Take 1,000 pounds off that car, give it wheelie bars, a clutch, a little bit bigger tire. I've had a lot of people ask me, what do I think these cars are going to run? Mark, what are these AFX cars going to run?
Well, you can't rule out the 5-speed transmission either, because on top of less drag, you also have 2 more gears to run in your power range, and these cars make big power and make power all the way through. I've never seen power like these small engines make, but if I had a guess, I'd say mid to high 6s at 200 plus probably.
That's my thought as well. I was telling folks that this is going to be, without question, in a 6-second, 200 mile an hour category, no matter how you cut it. And that's exciting. What do you think? Is there a risk of this category? I think there's been various times in 2021, well, the last few years, where if you're paying attention, Factory Shootout kind of stole the show. I mean, these cars move around, they do wheel stands, they'll smoke the tires well down the track. I mean, this is a crazy class to watch. Is there any chance that these cars, whether it's in 2022 or some point in the future, these cars could upstage Pro Stock, in my opinion?
One of the reasons I think they might be able to, Wes, is because the fans can relate to the cars and the bodies. Pro Stock has kind of gone away, in my opinion, from a factory car. And I think what intrigues the spectator so much is they can relate to these cars. You know, people come to our pit area and they say, well, I have a Dodge Challenger just like this sitting in my garage. And you know, it's always been race on Sunday, sell on Monday, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
But I do feel that the more the fan can relate, unless they want to hear a lot of noise and flames, etc., can relate to a car that they can go see in a dealership, the better the opportunity is to promote the class and have the class grow. Now, that being said, I also have some concerns, though, about what the cost would be to compete in this class, because pretty much you're going to be running a pro stock car, you know, with a different power plant.
Yes, sir. So, because that's one of the things where that's a lot of people are pointing to that being an issue in factory shootout right now, correct? That it's gotten wildly expensive, wildly competitive. From a business standpoint or kind of a financial standpoint, I mean, what kind of investment is a guy looking at to go race factory shootout and run at the front right now? I mean, what's a guy got to spend to go race that class and be competitive annually?
Well, you're probably looking at a minimum of, I would say the numbers are a couple $100,000 to run in that class right now. You know, if a shootout, the bar's been raised the last few years.
Yes,
from
sir.
when I've started. You know, we're spinning these motors higher, we're spinning them faster. It tears up more pieces and parts as we continue to go faster. As you know, there's always a weak link, the same way it was in pro stock. You know,
Right.
It went from valve train being a weak link to crankshafts being a weak link to the clutches or the transmissions, and ended up being the weak link, because as you keep to it and more power to these cars, something isn't made to go that fast. Just like you see all these football players these days, ACL injuries or knee injuries, you know, their bodies continue to get bigger. These guys continue to get faster. They continue to hit harder, and there's a weak link in the body. And right now it appears to be knees. And, you know, you see a lot of injuries every year. It's terrible. But I relate that to drag racing. And,
Yeah.
you know, we've been pretty fortunate with our parts. I mean, moving almost a 3,600 pound car off a starting line, the kind of power
Bonkers.
those cars make, you know, we've had all the cars have been pretty reliable with breakage. So going to the next level, there's pluses and minuses. You're going to have a lot less weight you're moving. But at the same time, you're putting a bigger tire on the car, which is going to allow you to put more power to the ground. You know, right now, it's a real finesse to drive these cars, because if you try to put all the power they make to the ground, you would just smoke the tires every run.
Right.
So there's a fine window there. And, you know, with going with a bigger tire, and the clutch, you're going to be able to put more power to the ground. So, you know, you're looking at one versus the other. But I guess a lot of the components would be related to stock other than the engine. So they should be able to hold up in that kind of condition.
We talked about you, but be our ears to the ground, so to speak. You're connected to the community. You've raced in this category, I believe, since its debut, right? You've got connections in this deal. What's the word on the street, Mark? What are your friends in the factory shootout ranks saying about this category? Do people seem to be excited? Is there buzz? Is there concern? Is there interest?
You know, I haven't really talked to many people since Vegas and the announcement came out after Vegas. I have heard that there's several people that already have cars on order.
Wow.
And, you know, we're trying to figure out what direction to go with, if you're going to be able to get bodies and whites or what exactly you're going to have to do. I just don't think it would make sense to buy a factory car that's complete and then have to disassemble it and put a cage in it if we can't get bodies and whites. It's going to be pretty much, in my opinion, a pro chassis. So, you know, it's going to evolve very quickly, I think. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement in it. I know several of the competitors in the factory shootout class got a little disappointed because of the amount of money that this costing them to race the class. It wasn't supposed to go in that direction. And I agree 100%, you know, for what we are as a class, it's gotten very expensive. But I think it's going to raise the bar even higher to go to AFX. But, you know, could it be the pro stock of the future? I think there's a possibility that could be, because I think if nothing else, the fans might be able to relate to it more. And if you have Dodges and if you have Fords out there, the diehard Dodge and Ford fans can actually relate to their brand and not relate to a pro stock car with a GM engine in it.
Right. I think that's part of the lightning in the bottle that made Pro Stock Pro Stock. We talk about it with Pro Mod. All those, it gives you reason. It's storylines. It's a narrative. You can pick different guys and different combinations to cheer for, different makes and models. I mean, that's a big part of the racing tradition is Ford versus Chevy versus Dodge and so on and so forth. So bringing that back to the table is interesting and exciting to me. What do you think of? Is there any chance we're going to see some factory support? I mean, I know that you've been very close to like Dodge for the last several years, right? You've got a teammate, Leah, and being a part of the Don Schumacher racing operation like you have been. Do you think there's any chance that this category means enough or resonates with the Detroit auto manufacturers that we could see Ford field a couple cars, Chevy field a couple cars, Dodge field a couple cars? I mean, how amazing would that be to get some real factory support? Maybe a bad thing, I don't know, but it would be cool to see Detroit auto manufacturers get behind drag racing like that.
I think it would be awesome to see that happen, Wes. Is when you have all three brands out there. You know, back when I raced Pro Stock, back in the 90s, 80s, and 90s, you had Oldsmobile out there. You know, you had Chevy out there, you had Pontiac out there as a GM brand, you had Ford out there, Dodge was spending some money, and that all kind of went aside. You know, my one concern right now, and I'm going to be real honest with you, is the manufacturers all seem to be going the way of electric right now. And
yeah,
first of all, we don't have the grid in this country to be able to support all these electric vehicles that people want to bring out. And I mean, you see it in the hot cities in the summertime where they have power failures, power surges. If you start bringing all these vehicles out into this environment and the manufacturers go in that direction away from the combustion engines, I don't know what's going to happen, period. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like watching that Ford Mustang electric car. You know, on the track, it accelerates very quickly. But it really isn't a turn on for me. You don't hear anything.
I'm going to be honest. It doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't. I hate to be that guy, and I'm a tech guy. Like I like techie stuff, and I liken myself a relatively young dude, but I just can't get excited about it. I really can't. I hate that, and I heard there's more coming. I heard there's more big announcements coming for more electric muscle cars. I wasn't at SEMA this year. I've got a back injury and it just didn't make sense, but it's like seeing the hot rod project car, that legendary Project X57 Chevy on the SEMA show floor with some sort of electric. I don't even know how this shit works, to be totally honest, with some sort of a battery in it and cables hooked to it. It kind of broke my heart because I don't know. I really don't know. Like I'm not an enemy of progress. I'm an open-minded dude, but I just don't know how it fits in our sport, you know? And I do get concerned because if that's where all of Chevy, Dodge, and Ford's energy is, it doesn't bode well for like AFX.
And that is a concern that I have. Exactly. And, you know, I hope that's not the case. I hope that you'll see the majority of their market branding is with the you know, fast street cars, like they continue to go on. You know, I mean, you look at the Dodge Pack, you know, it got delayed a year because of COVID. And they built 50 cars. They sold out in 18 minutes. That's pretty amazing. So,
it is.
You know, you still have the fan, especially the old guys like me that like to hear noise, even though I can't hear anymore. They like to go
Maybe
fast.
both.
You know that. And I'm just hoping that they're intrigued by this as a way to sell cars on Monday, and you know, and keep the brands out there. And you know, it'd be great if maybe Toyota would even come up with a V8 engine to compete in the class also.
How cool would that be? That would be like,
great.
Oh, it'd be spectacular. And I mean, clearly horsepower and hot rods. I mean, if you watch any like Dodge commercial for the last several years, I mean, it's burnouts and launches. And I mean, it's all about hot rods. Chevrolet's got a lineup of high performance vehicles. I mean, look at these trucks. The Ford Raptor's a hot rod. This new Dodge TRX is like an 11-second four-wheel drive truck off the showroom floor. It really feels to me like the public cares about cars right now. Hot rods are fashionable. I talked to a guy today, Mark, Chris Bailey, that owns Bailey's, I believe it's called Bailey's High Performance down here in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. I don't know exactly where he's at, but I saw a YouTube video that he has a full-weight Dodge Challenger, like a demon or whatever, and it's all souped up and it's got the best Magnuson blower on it and all this stuff. It went an 847 with a stock transmission, stock torque converter, stock drive shaft, stock axles, and they drove it to the track with air conditioning. It's got satellite radio. I mean, the technology, I mean, that's unbelievable. 850s with a street car and drive it home. I mean, you can't say enough about what Dodge has, or excuse me, what the Detroit auto manufacturers have done, what technology has provided us. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. You'd have had to have a full-blown race car to run in the 8s in the quarter mile.
Yes. Well, it's amazing when you bolt that power adder on top, how much boost and performance it adds to these vehicles. It is just absolutely amazing. I never could have even imagined. I remember, I started back in 2018, and Leo was kind enough to let me drive a car at Charlotte after the race to get my license and relicense. And I'll tell you what, it got my attention. I didn't think it was any big deal, but they're with that little 9-inch tire in the back of those things. Imagine being a street car going that fast. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Just tell me, what brought you back to drag racing? What year did you pull the plug on your pro stock operation?
I quit 06.
06? So 12 years later.
Yeah, 13 actually.
13 years later. Okay, so I mean, we got to know, like, what got that going?
I got a lot of issues.
You couldn't shake it, because typically you don't see that very much. I can count like a dozen. I mean, I can give a lot of examples right now of guys that were like racing at a pro level every weekend on the tour. They go away. They decide to throw in the towel, buy a fishing boat. You never see them again. You know what I mean? Like they can't get close to it again, so they stay away. It's crazy to think about the sport luring you back in after over a decade.
Basically, Wes, my kids were pretty young when I quit racing. My parents' health started to decline, and they were at their prime and in school playing sports, and I didn't want to miss that. And Don Schumacher in my ear, we're pretty good friends for years. Coming back, and we were flying to Gainesville, and he was in my ear along with a couple other guys that were flying with us. But a lot of it had to do with my daughter and my son. My daughter works for Schumacher Racing. She does all the social media, and my son has missed drag racing. I mean, he was out there when he was 6 weeks old with his headphones on at the track, and just loves it. So the opportunity, even though my wife doesn't enjoy it right now, because it's kind of hard. We get shifted around a lot at the track with our run times, etc. But I get to spend weekends with my kids, and my son just loves working on the car, and he's come a long way. I love being around my daughter. She does all our posting. Thank you. So it's an opportunity to me, I guess. My employees have been supportive of me, because when I quit in 06, I never really retired. I kind of just stepped away. I'll be honest with you. I thought I was going to miss it a lot more than I did. But now that I'm back in it, I do really enjoy it. I look forward to going to the races, and I look forward to competing, and I want to win again bad. And I just, I guess I got that drive. Right now, I'm one of the older guys. Knock on wood, my health so far has been good. And if I want to do something I can enjoy, and my accountant has even told me, you've worked hard all your life. Do something that you enjoy, you really love doing. And I've got some great sponsors with me. Some of my sponsors came back that were on my car when I ran Pro Stock.
That's awesome.
Ohio Cat and Mr. Heater. And, it was cool to come back and be Leo's teammate. And, I want to carry the program further now and continue the successes with Don Schumacher. But I'll tell you what really meant to me when I came to Bristol, which was my first race. I cannot tell you how many competitors in factory stock came up to me, introduced themselves, how cool it was to have me out in sport and racing the class. And that really is what drag racing is about overall. It's all about family.
It is. I think it's the best family you could ask for. I mean, if you don't have a family, you need to seek out the sport of drag racing, because this is a group of people that will take you in and take care of you. What do you make of, it's been a big talk here at the end of the season that Don Schumacher Racing is going to look different in 2022. I don't mean to put you on the spot. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but being how close you are with Don, a guy who's done an infinite amount for the sport of drag racing, I got to be honest, and this hasn't gotten talked about enough. I actually hate this, to be honest. I've grown up with Don Schumacher being, I don't know, he's like the guy we all wanted to be. You know what I mean? He's the guy standing in between two cars, and he's the guy that's got 20 logos on his shirt. And it's he's done something that I don't know that we could ever pay him back for what he's done for the sport. So I get a little bit twisted up thinking about him not having the presence that he once had. Two questions. What do you make of the situation? How do you feel about it? And how does it affect you?
I'll be honest with you, it's disappointing me. You know, Don has done a tremendous amount for our sport. He's done a tremendous amount with his sponsors. He's won a lot of world championships and a lot of races. Not so sure it was handled properly, but it was handled in the way it was. Don still has a competitive drive. You know, our sport has changed a lot, as we all know. You know, COVID has really changed a lot of things. It's made a lot tougher for a lot of people to be out there. You know, manufacturers have changed, and sponsors have changed. There's programs. Don can probably do whatever he wants to do. You know, he's going to bring Tony back next year, which I think is great.
Great.
He wants to keep the factory cars running. Maybe try another car if we can. So I feel bad for Don, and I don't think, you know, I would have much rather seen it maybe on Don's terms when he decided it was time. But, you know, it's a business, and I guess people have the right to make the right business, just to make any business decision they want. But, you know, I'll never forget what Don's done for the sport and has done to promote our sport. And you think about COVID in 2019, when so many cars parked, and, you know, NHRA wouldn't have had much of a show, especially in Funny Car. Don had 4 cars out there running where other teams parked. And
it wasn't lost on me.
Show.
It wasn't lost on me, and that was the first thing I thought about when our sport at its highest level needed help. I mean, DSR was putting cars in the pits, right, and on the racetrack, and keeping people employed, and it really can't. The significance of that can't be overstated. I mean, there are a lot of people that lost their jobs, and you know, Don Schumacher keeping people out there and keeping teams in action and keeping that shop full of staff is an incredible feat that we owe him so much for. Do you feel like Don's in some way, will this be a, I mean, I'm not asking you, Mark, to speak for him. I'm just curious. I mean, do you feel like he's kind of leaving on bad terms a little bit with the sport? I mean, is this, like you said, this maybe isn't the way he wanted it to shake out?
You know, I don't get that. I don't think so. I had dinner with him last week. You know, I think Don at his age wants to start enjoying his life more. So yeah. I hope he has that opportunity to do that and still be involved where he wants to be. So, you know, I want him to make it on his own terms, like I said, like I mentioned, you know, and I'm sure it'll all work out in the long run for him. He wasn't expected as quick as maybe some of this has happened, but you know, I guess it is what it is. And Don's a fighter, and he's a competitor, and he'll continue to move forward, and he'll be successful. There's no doubt.
And you know, whatever he does, he'll do it at an extremely high level. And like you said, he will be successful with it. Speaking of, and just kind of moving forward with the conversation, I'm curious what you talked about your wife not enjoying it as much, and I don't because of the scheduling thing. How much does that type of thing affect you as a racer, especially someone who's raced at a professional level, been a star of the pro stock division? You know, we do a lot of, you know, trying to help people improve. I mean, you and I've had conversations about how events can improve and how events can be run better. How important is that type of thing to you as a racer? And especially, do you feel like Factory Shootout could maybe reach a new level if it was treated as part of the show a little bit more consistently? Maybe your wife would enjoy it if you knew you were going to run at 1 and 4.
I would say yes, 100%. I do feel that way. You know, we seem to be always the first one that gets bumped. I know Indy last year, you know, we were supposed to run before Pro Mod in the last session, and we ended up getting moved till after there was a crash, and then they ended up canceling, and we never ran. I know at Gainesville this year, my wife came on Saturday and Sunday, and we were supposed to run at like, I don't know, maybe 10:30 and 3:30. We ended up pushing us to the very end after the first round of Pro Mod, and there was a crash. We ran like at 10:30 at night, if I remember correctly. And then we had to be back at like 8 o'clock the next morning for first round of eliminations. And I'm not used to being treated that way with scheduling. You know, it's kind of hard in my opinion. I know factory stock isn't the draw, but there are people that come there. I can tell you there's a lot of people that come to me, just love the class, where they have less interest with pro stock over the years. But when you have a schedule, and I believe me, I understand there's delays, there's rain delays, etc.
Oh, for sure.
But why all of a sudden we seem to be the easiest class to bump to the end when we have 20, 30 cars, we run in probably 8 or 10 minutes max. I mean, they run us through very, very quickly. It makes it tough. And I think it creates a top of competitors like me and my wife not having any interest because of that. I think you lose fan appeal, and I think you lose racers because of it. You know, we plan on going to dinner with our family at night. You're at the track till 11 o'clock at night, so that gets squashed. So I think it's very important. And I know NHRA tries to do the right thing. I'm trying to criticize them. But
yeah, for sure.
It's
a tough thing to do.
I do feel it's tough. And, you know, they can't control accidents. They can't control weather, et cetera, oil downs when they happen. But I think they could do a better job of, you know, running us when we are slated to run.
I agree, man. Well, hey, Mark, it's an amazing thing, and as soon as this AFX announcement came out, the first person I thought, I was like, oh, we got to get Mark Pawuk on the show to talk about this. He'll give us the straight dirt. He'll tell us exactly what he thinks about it. I'm glad to hear that you're excited, because I was curious. I didn't know how people would react. I've talked to a handful of pro stock team owners that I thought might be, you know, have their feathers ruffled by it. They're excited about it. I don't think it's lost on these people that nobody's racing, you know, nobody's buying a car with a 500-inch big block Chevy in it. You know, that's unfortunately, that's just a kind of picture of yesteryear. And if this is a step into the future for pro stock, if this is a glimpse of what it might look like down the road, I'm on board. I absolutely am. I'm a guy who historically doesn't want to mess with pro stock. I feel like, why fix what's not broken? But it would be cool to see the NHRA maybe getting ahead of this issue. And I'm hoping that's the case. I truly am.
Well, I feel the same way, Wes. And I tell you, reach out to me and ask me if I'd be on your show. I mean, you know, I love your magazine, read it all the time. You know, I love watching your shows, and you've done a tremendous amount for sport with the races that you put on. I really enjoyed being in Orlando, you know, and the way you treated my family and I there. And you know, I always try to remember how I got to where I am. And I know you're the same way. And, you know, the sport has given me a lot over the years. And if I can give something back and help out, I want to be that kind of guy. And I hope that I do that. And, you know, I just enjoy being around it. I enjoy the people and enjoy the competitiveness of the class.
Well, you are, man. You are that guy. I said that whenever you came on. You've been good to me since day one. It's an incredible thing. I never thought I'd see the day. I mean, I stood along the fence and watched you race and cheered you on, and you were one of my Olds Cutlass guys. So you're one of my heroes. I think the greatest race car body ever made, Olds Cutlass. But anyways, you are that guy, Mark, and I appreciate your support and all you've done for us over the years. Will we see you at PRI maybe?
I don't think I'll be able to make it. I'm going to be out of town that weekend. If I would have, I was there last year, or actually 2 years ago now. I guess.
Yeah, 19. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think I'll be able to make it. My son Kyle might come over. By the way, with you saying you're standing along the fence watching me, you really gave my age up now, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, man, I hope I age like you do. That's a fact. Hand to God. They've been waiting for me all day to say it. I hope I age like the cowboy, brother. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Tell your son, daughter, hello. Tell the wife, hello. And if not at PRI, hopefully our paths cross sometime soon. Thank you so much, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Pawuk.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, brother. Talk soon, man. What a deal. This has been a star-studded show. I tell you, I'm so proud of this deal, and I feel so honored to have this opportunity to talk with some of the biggest names in the sport of drag racing. It really, it's never going to get old. You think sometimes that it would, but it just never does. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here. About time to get the shoots out, and you know what that means, JT. It is time for Drag Illustrated After Hours. Go ahead and play the video. I'll cue the music, and we'll be back with Mike Carpenter, JT Hudson, and the one and only Lyle Barnett. Hey, gang.
What's
Lyle,
up?
I think hey, Lyle, did they leave at Modern yet? Did they just say turn off the lights when you're done?
Nah, man, they're still back there making rips on the dyno. And
I know Justin's gone. I know Justin's gone.
Actually, he's not because I've got his. I just realized I have his keys. So no, he's not.
Oh my goodness, man. Oh, Stan Waxberg says this is the best part of the show. I don't know that I can disagree with him. I think this is fun.
We drink on this part, so.
And I don't have any booze here at the office.
Me either. That's
Dude,
what I figured.
I'm drinking Wes's. I'm drinking Wes's old ultras he left in the fridge.
those are real old.
I was about to say, better check the date on those.
Yeah, I would check the date on them too.
They don't
I'm
matter.
looking all over for some. I don't have anything in my office.
Gave him some kick.
I had this idea that I was going to say this earlier during the show. Do you guys remember Dragster 1? Does anybody remember when the IHRA was going to launch their own version? They were going to do their new version of Top Fuel was going to be Dragster 1. And I was just curious, does anybody remember that?
That was like during the IRG deal, right?
Yeah,
when they
Feld
took over
Entertainment,
Feld.
all that.
No,
yeah.
I think it's when IRG took over for Feld.
Yes, you're right.
And they were going to do that. And I think that had something to do with some international deal.
Yeah.
Because isn't IRG tied in with the deal and overseas, and it had to do with that Yas Marina or something? Maybe I'm mixing everything up, but yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, they were going to do they wanted to create.
Not a bad idea. I mean,
it's not a terrible idea.
See it fail because now it's like, oh, we're never trying that again.
Well, so when I was at Stroud this morning, they do all sorts of blankets and containment device things for Feld. And I said, hey, Tommy, what are all these boxes that say Feld on them? They're for all the monster trucks.
Yeah, monster trucks. Yeah.
Right. And what do you guys make of a world where the NHRA owned 8 Top Fuel cars, owned 8 funny cars, and it was contested more like that? What do you think of that? Do you think that something like that could work?
No.
Everybody's Lyle's your audio working.
Yeah.
Did you ask me that?
I'm asking everybody that. I just think it's an interesting thing to talk about.
I do think it's something we need. Unfortunately, I think the nature of drag racing won't allow it to happen.
Yeah. I've often wondered if it would pan out because it's, Monster Jam clearly works, right? I mean, Monster Jam is a home run. I mean, it would appear that it has had a lot of staying power. It's been excited for a long, long time. They continue to grow. They've got new characters, new trucks. I mean, it's not just Bigfoot and Gravedigger or whatever. I mean, they've got all sorts of guys. NHRA would make water dry. It's Eric.
Damn.
That's hilarious.
No Prep Kings is kind of this.
I'll agree with
it's
that.
kind of what we're talking about. A little bit exhibition, a little bit controlled, and more about the entertainment than the actual event or the actual racing. So I think we're kind of getting it in No Prep Kings, and it's part of why it's so successful.
I think we are kind of getting it. I mean, Guitar Man KW saying then it becomes WWE. I just wonder because you consider all the issues. Have we had a conversation ever on this show that didn't at some point touch on participation being an issue?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, every single episode we've done, somewhere along the line, whether we were talking 5 years ago, we were talking about Pro Stock. This year, we're talking about Pro Mod. A couple of years ago, and last year specifically, obviously COVID, we're talking about Car Count and Funny Car and Top Fuel. You look at the future, we're asking Don Schumacher's going away. It's no secret that Connie Coletta is advanced in age, right? John Force is even getting up there. You start to wonder, what is the future? And I think, this isn't even a negative or a horror story type of thing. This isn't a doom and gloom conversation. It's just curious to ask yourself if drag racing could support a real entertainment driven show where there was, 8 funny cars, or maybe it's just all funny cars, or a touring act that went around and put on shows. I mean, maybe No Prep Kings is already doing it and we don't need it.
You talked about it, about a year ago on here, that, taking an act on the road basically as a show. But I don't know. I mean, they'd screw it up probably. I mean, really.
Yeah, and maybe it's not even NHRA that does it, because I just look at the crowds that are, being put together for these no prep king race. I mean, there's clearly interest. So like there's clearly a ticket buying public that will support drag racing events. I mean, there's so many races going on that you can hardly keep up with them. So that tells me that there's a market there. And drag racing, if you close your eyes and envision a drag racing car, I think you envision a Top Fuel car, pretty much. I mean, that's like if you're the uninitiated or if you're a casual fan or nothing about drag racing, the first thing they think of is a Top Fuel car.
Right.
So if you just had a touring show of those.
This comment says they're trying something like that in Australia. So
see, yeah, I knew I was getting that from somewhere. A lot of times I'll just come up with a grab bag of thoughts and just throw them together. And I know some of them are right. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that deal is the Rocket. What's it called? Rocket, which is like their version of Jags down in Australia. It's like a mail order company. And I'm butchering this, but like the owner.
Mail order.
Yeah. I mean, but the owner of the company owns like a dozen Top Fuel cars and fields them, competing against one another. And it is a cool deal. But I do think drag racing, I thought this would be a fun thing to just introduce to the last part of the show, some of that king for a day stuff.
We talk about participation so much because drag racing is so participant driven. We talked about it with Ron earlier, where so many people are afraid to admit that they're fans of drag racing. And I think it's because it's not cool. The cool kids are participants in drag racing. They love it, but they're also participating. And if you lose participation, you're essentially losing your fan base as well. So it's because the two are mixed together. We don't have this little pool of participants and then this massive pool of fans the way the NFL does, or other sports, or even other forms of racing like F1. It's all participant driven. If car counts are down, the sport as a whole is down and fans are down because the fans are the participants more times than not.
By and large.
Yeah. So that's why participation is so key. And that's why we talk about it so much.
But my question, and I've thought about it here recently because we're seeing it locally. There's so much going on any given weekend. So is it over the past few years, you've seen these promoters come out of the woodworks? Like everybody is trying to put on a series or a race. And are we seeing now, is there a point where there is too much? Is there a point where in the state of Texas, in a given month, there's a Pro Mod drag race every week or a Pro Mod like drag race every week. And then when the national event rolls through, it hurts it. Now the Stampede of Speed was a little different because they did a whole week long speed week type feel. And I think that helped. But I know locally for a fact, in small tire no prep specifically, there's literally a small tire no prep race every single weekend. And now people are starting to talk about, man, we're just not getting the cars. Man, we're just not getting the cars. Well, that's because everybody's doing it.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Was that surprising to you, Mike, when you asked Caps about the match racing thing? Like, I thought he would immediately dive into some like romantic tale of match races gone by. But he talked about it's just too much. Like we don't have the there's not an appetite for those guys. I mean, there's no room in their schedule to race more.
Yeah. Well, what killed match racing is the cost of everything and the 24 race NHRA schedule. When NHRA went to the whole eliminator 24 race deal, it essentially was the beginning of the end for match racing. And I think we're seeing that even more now. But Ron did say that if you are going to go match racing, it's in like a nostalgia funny car. It's in like a funny car chaos type of series. It's like those kind of things. You're not going to see John Force drag his, A1 top level equipment out to really anywhere except for the Bader family's Night of Fire in Norwalk. That's really the only remaining one. But back in the 90s, John Force was racing every single weekend. In between, he was doing these crazy, he was doing exhibitions, car shows, super Chevy shows. I mean, like all kinds of stuff back in the day. That's because they had to do it. But then just the way everything is now, that's gone away. So
that was in other sports too.
Yeah.
I read Arnold Palmer's book one time, and he would go in between and do exhibitions.
Whoa, what? What'd you say?
You
read a book?
I did. And you did say I couldn't read earlier. And
Mike said that shit, not me.
Wes said that.
Yeah, whatever.
No, I didn't. I did.
Yeah,
no, you said
I heard you. I wrote it down. And yeah. you're gonna get it for that. But anyway,
Thanksgiving's right around the corner, Wes.
That's right. And he would
better not drink those
you know,
leftover McUltras.
He would sleep in his car, in the parking lot between, to cut down on costs and everything. So I mean, all sports have changed over the years, of course, but yeah.
Well, I mean, so everybody's had to make those sacrifices. I mean, across the board. I think Lyle's probably on it, that there's just too much shit to do. I mean, there's so many races. I mean, honestly, I don't mean to break news here, but that's why I'm like 99% sure not going to do a race next year, is there's too many. Like, there's too many races. I mean, we have the NHRA, we have racers crying to the NHRA that they want to race less. The NHRA is going to make them race as much or more. And then you've got guys like me. There's a Pro Mod race. There's so many Pro Mod races. How do you stand out? I mean, how do you be different? I mean, I think we found the recipe: pay a ton of money, right? And promote it like it's going out of style. But I think about, when I look at the sport of drag racing, I kind of ask myself, am I contributing? Am I a part of the problem? You know what I mean? Like, you have to ask yourself that. I don't know that our sport needs a bunch more races right now.
It doesn't.
Well, it's because everybody goes off like, well, I used to race. It starts like a pyramid or whatever. It's like everyone used to show up at an NHRA race and compete in the classes they offered. Well, they don't offer my class anymore, or I invented a new class. Here comes another series. And it just starts trickling down from there to where everyone invents a new class, it seems like. And then they invent a series around those classes, and off we go. And it just continues to get fragmented. Instead of building cars that fit a handful of rule sets, we build rule sets to fit a handful of cars.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Speaking of all sorts of different cars and categories and whatnot, how about Jason Miller's import versus domestic World Cup finals this past weekend, the 25th annual edition of that race up at Maryland International Raceway? 40,000 people there over the course of a few days. I mean, the place was bananas. Every time I looked at a video, I watched a bunch via our partners at Flow Racing's live stream, which I thought was fantastic. I know Flow Racing had like their A-team on hand for that particular event. But how about Manny Bajinga going 588 on 275s? Lyle, I mean, you've been fives on big tires. What do you think about doing it in a heavy ass street car?
Well, I mean, in something a little more aerodynamic like Manny's car, I would do it, but I've been asked like, hey man, why don't you go break the quarter mile leaf spring record? And I'm like, dude, have you seen the leaf spring car that I mean, it is a badass car, right? I mean, built. But that thing, like quarter mile racing a cinder block, like about as aerodynamic as a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and we've considered going up there and clicking it somewhere just past the 8th and coasting through to try it. Because I don't think the mile per hour record on leaf springs, but is like 204 or 206 or something like that, which we could do easily, But, you think about it as far as tire technology is concerned. And back when, the BFG, let's say, was the tire of choice for drag rated racing, you would never consider going that fast on that thing, right? Ever. And now you're talking about 200. I mean, Kluger and Fiskus went 250 or 240 something or on a 315 like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. And so that speaks to Mickey Thompson and all these tire companies that have produced these tires that are capable of going those speeds. But that would be my only concern, is that little 275. I mean, it just, I don't know how that thing is just absolutely frying, by the time to get to the top end. So that would be my only concern, going that fast in a steel roof and quartered stock bodied car. But
are any of you guys surprised how import and sport compact racing maintains such a strong following? I think that fanfare that shows up at import versus domestic. I mean, those are not X275 fans. Those are import fans.
It seems to really reach a mainstream crowd too. Yeah. I see people that don't talk about racing or aren't into racing that much, but know someone that is, or into imports, and they know about this event. And it really, the import versus domestic thing, I think, brings out a lot of people. To me, it seems like it's one event that's able to reach into the mainstream car culture conscience, and that's, I think, to the how ferocious the import fan base is. And to me, that's another thing we talk about with NHRA.
Those fans go crazy.
That's an untapped market right there.
I think it is too. Like, we were talking with Caps about fertile soil that exists in the sport of drag racing. I mean, obviously, import and sport compact racing has been around. How much horsepower was that, Lyle? All of it?
Nah, that they've been struggling with that thing today, but I don't know. That's probably 1,800 horsepower pull right there. Sounded good. Hang on,
It did sound good.
Yeah, that's about right. I was listening for the backfire.
Yeah, I will say, I think import racing. I think we're sleeping on it. I really do. I think it's being slept on. I mean, I was thinking about it in relation to like Drag Illustrated, our editorial calendar for 2022. I'm looking at our breakdown of issues and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I've had people tell me in the past that like, man, there's so many killer import cars and so much good racing amongst this community.
On it. Yep.
I mean, and there was a Honda that went like 611. I mean, it's a Cobalt. It's a tube chassis car, but it's a Honda. It's a Cobalt with a Honda body on it or whatever, but or Honda decals and headlights, whatnot. But it's got a 4-cylinder in it, and it went 611 at 200 something.
Well, there were several 260 mile an hour runs by those import guys, you know, this past weekend. And I think at your race, that's one of the most or more enjoyable. And not just the cars to watch, but the fan interaction. Like listening to the announcer, the fans, the mob of people that they brought in cargo planes from wherever they came from, you know, and those dudes lose their minds. Like it's pretty awesome to watch. I mean, I enjoy watching the crowd.
A little bit.
It really did. You talked about that last week, how you were a little bit frustrated that, you know, they came there with an import and kind of stole the show. But I think
kind of. Yeah, it was awesome.
Roll the commercial. We forgot to remind you. You got to roll that commercial.
Well, let's go ahead and play that commercial real quick because I want to watch it anyways. This is you know, shout out to our buddies at Flow Racing. I'm watching that shit. Guaranteed. I'm watching that deal. That race is going to be lit. I think we're going to see, I mean, Stevie Fast is going. Marcus Burt's got that red Corvette that's, you know, the baddest nitrous door car on the planet for a hot minute there when he set the radial tire world record. I saw Jeffrey Barker post up some videos of that car getting shaken down at Carolina Dragway with big tires on it. So I think there'll be a threat. A lot of cars headed to Orlando right now. Craig Sullivan's already down there. I saw Mark Woodruff is already down there making passes.
Stevie left today. I think I saw.
Stevie Jackson left today. I think it's going to be a fun one. I want to go back real quick to the import versus domestic thing. Those cars, do you think, or what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, Justin Elks. You were just talking about modern racing. He came up to me at our race in Orlando, and it was right after a slew of the old school import cars had run. And I mean, all the crews are like still up there high-fiving, and it was like a test pass.
Right.
I mean, it was not of any meaning whatsoever, but like all the crews down there hugging and high-fiving, wiping tears away from their eye, you know, like having this incredible emotional outpouring on the starting line. And Justin looked at me and he goes, Wes, how do we get that? Like, how do we bring that? And I told him, and I just want to make this point and get you guys to react to it. I said to him, we're jaded. We take this for granted. They don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think, you know, too, we can go right back to what we were talking about earlier, that it's so saturated here. You know, like we've just got so much going on. And over there, can't speak on it from experience, but I imagine that what little bit they brought over here is probably the big deal wherever they came from. You know, now I know a lot of those imports or several are from here. But the huge crew and, you know, and the fans that are going wild, those people came here from another country, you know, and like they're it. So when they come over here, they're competing with, we're probably considered the Mecca, right? Like we're it. You come 100%. Over here to race, we are it, you know, and they're over here running with us, you know, maybe running personal best or whatever, you know, and that's it for them. So, you know, and I think that's part of it too.
I think that's Mike and JT. I want you guys to expound on that too, because don't you think that's something? There has been several times that I've been at a racetrack, and I mean, and you guys know this. Like, if you go to the racetrack, the first conversation you're going to have is like, "Oh, sons of bitches parked us in the weeds," or something. Yeah. They're mad. Everybody's mad, right? And then I see those guys, and the reaction they have, like I said, after a mediocre test pass, they're celebrating as if they just won the U.S. Nationals. The difference is just being jaded. Like, I want to grab some guys by the shoulders sometime.
They're probably just happy that they don't have to work on the car if it made it down, because they are all over the place. You know, so they're like, shit, oh goddamn.
Do you remember when the one dude folded his door around in the stage? Were you there when the one import car, it was a little red Starlet or whatever they're called, a Toyota Starlet. He's in the staging lanes. They got the door open. They're getting him bolted in the car. And here comes another car rolling up, like being pulled behind a golf cart. And it just catches his driver's side door and folds it flat against the front fender. Do they do anything? Nothing but shut that bitch. They go to work, grabbing it, yanking it, pulling it, shutting it, getting the thing, trying to get the little window latch to lock, because they're going to send it, and it goes rip-roaring down through there, and they're still Ted Nugent rock and roll, fist pumping, kicking. I mean, I'm going, these guys get it, bro. Yeah. I mean, they get it.
They got more air horns than I do. And I have an insane amount of air horns. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just being, gratefulness, thankfulness for being there, for the opportunity. And I think also not being afraid to be a fan or cheer on each other, or be afraid to be a fan of different kinds of cars. First thing I think of when I roll through the drag shows, I can't believe they got those shit boxes here. Or like, as American fans, you're not supposed to even like import racing.
Right.
That's a bad word. Or if there are no imports, dragsters guys don't like door cars. Door car guys sure as hell don't like dragsters.
Bracket racers by and large hate everyone.
Hate pro racers.
Yeah.
I mean, the lines of division run so thick in drag racing, and I don't think that carries across to these other countries or these other types of racing. So that to me is the thing. That's a theme of the show today. Don't be afraid to tell someone you love their car, even if it's not your cup of tea, or your group doesn't like it, or to be a fan of what somebody's doing. Right.
I wore the wrong shirt for a conversation like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Royce Lee. I'm gonna get a call from Royce Lee about this shit in a few minutes.
Mike Carper, you stupid.
Don't talk about imports.
Yeah.
I think it's like we got to encourage people. I really feel strongly that people aren't there is a negative connotation associated with being a fan. Like I think it's part of that whole fanboy thing. Like, nobody wants to be a fanboy. Well, like, I'm here to tell you, I'm a fanboy of drag racing, and I'm cool with that. And I do think that it's not cool enough to be a fan. You got to be a racer.
It's because that's how you get your street cred in racing, is showing up with a car, taking out the big dog or whatever. And there's really not a lot of other ways to do it. So I think being a fan and just, unless you just really draw that hard line in the sand that you don't participate at all and I'm a fan, kind of towing the line is looked down upon. If you're a participant at all, you cannot be a fan.
I agree. And it's I tell the story all the time of like trying to get my dad to go to the races, but he looked at me and goes, "What? Well, they don't have a class for us." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, so we're going to go watch." "Oh, I don't go to races that I can't race at." You know what I mean?
You hear that all the time. Man, I'm just a terrible spectator.
Yeah. If it's not nitrous door car racing, you don't talk about it in the Carpenter household.
It's a fact, man. I mean, it's literally the exact same thing in our house. And it's tough because I really do think that we owe it. We need to be okay to be a fan of our sport. I mean, it's like, Guitar Man is saying you can't participate in NFL. Who wants to try to tackle a Derrick Henry? I certainly don't.
I talked to their long snapper one time. I said, how many times, out of 10 times I was playing a golf tournament with him, could you tackle Derrick Henry? And he said, 0. I mean, that is massive.
That is a good point. That's why I think the mindset is so different. Guys that love drag racing generally hate sports. Have you ever noticed this?
Yeah.
Because it's a different mentality. Like my dad would always say to me, why do you love basketball? I love basketball growing up. You're never going to be able to play with those guys. You can't compete at that level. Why do you want to watch these guys shoot a basketball? And it's just like, well, I know I'm never going to play in the NBA. This is the closest I'm getting to it. And you learn to enjoy the intricacies of it and how hard it is to actually do it. Same thing kind of applies to drag racing, but the barrier to entry is relatively low. So you're allowed to be able to get into it at a low level and work your way up. It's not based on, elite athleticism. So
right.
It's a different mentality, but we've always joked how people that there are a few. They're like us. I think everyone on this show bridges that gap. But if you talk to like your super hardcore drag racers, like your dad, Wes, my dad, you don't talk about sports.
No. I mean, very rarely does it ever come up. I mean, my dad would come in the office and literally give JT I would be like embarrassed because the ribbing that my dad is giving JT about playing golf. Why in the hell would you waste your time? There's a drag strip 90 miles from here. You could walk. You could get there.
Real sport anyway.
That ain't a real sport. And I mean, he would go on and on and on about it. I'm like, Dad, we get it.
Why do you like football? It says right on the back of the ticket. It's entertainment. It's all set up. You know,
your dad's a major conspiracy theorist, man.
He's been on that. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny though, because it really does kind of get me revved up because I'm like, we got to get a little bit more. I watched this literally this past weekend. I was watching the UFC fight Saturday night. Kamaru Usman defended his title against Colby Covington. Super big fight, grudge match. I mean, probably over 1 million pay-per-view buys. They sell out Madison Square Garden, like the largest. I think it was the 4th highest gate ever in the history of Madison Square Garden. Really interesting, but nonetheless, you pan around they pan the camera around the crowd, and there's like A-list movie stars there, right? What's the girl? Halle Berry is in the crowd, right? Zac Efron's in the crowd, like superstar celebrities.
A-list. That might be B-list. What do you think, JT?
Zac Efron's A-list, isn't he? I think Zac Efron. You don't think Zac Efron's A-list?
No,
not really.
He was in really.
And Halle Berry
she
used
was
to be A-list. She's on B-list now.
All right. Well, I mean, The Rock goes to these things. Okay. I don't know that he was there at this last one, but I mean, they got The Rock there, and then you go The Rock, Dwayne. You don't know who I'm talking about? Okay. Then you look into the stands, and there's tons of other fighters that are more than happy to be there supporting the sport, supporting other athletes. Yeah, tons of them.
Tom Brady, I think, was that one we watched. Paul Pierce, your favorite, Wes. Wes is a huge. If you're Christmas is coming up, Wes is a huge Paul Pierce fan. Send him some Paul Pierce gear.
I hate Paul Pierce and Kawhi Leonard. I don't like either of those guys. I don't know him personally, but I'm not a fan. But I just find it interesting because like Chuck Liddell's in the stands, you know what I mean? Yeah. And reigning active fighters are in the stands. People retire from drag racing and they're like never seen again. I tell you what, we'll swivel this towards treatment of our stars. I find it interesting because the UFC will continue this analogy. They every time I turn around, they're inducting someone else into their Hall of Fame, right? George St. Pierre is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Freaking Tito Ortiz is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Don't you find it interesting that it's a fairly rare occasion that you see a lot of stars from yesteryear showing up at drag races? I mean, anymore, it's you'll see Shirley Muldowney fairly frequently. Every once in a while, you'll see, Don Garlitz, but those guys I don't know that they are celebrated the way that maybe they should be. We spend a lot of time talking about what used to, how it used to be in the golden days and all the heroes of yesteryear, but they're really not even, I don't know. I don't know that they're celebrated. I mean, I think those guys should be brought out as often as possible.
They ain't going if they can't race.
Yeah, I think you're right, man.
Don Garlitz says, you got a car for me? Or what are we going to do? No, we just want you to come here. We're going to honor you as the legend of drag racing. Nah, pass.
I'm good.
Yeah, pass.
Hard pass.
Hard pass.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I can hear Don Perdome would probably say hard pass.
Yeah.
Hard pass. I don't think so. Boys. Oh my gosh. Well, what are you guys looking forward to most as we wrap up the show and head to that 5 o'clock hour? I want to thank everybody again. Of course, I want to thank all of our sponsors. Elite HP. Log on to Elite HP. Buy yourself a hot rod, maybe a turnkey race car, some parts, pieces, tools, whatever you need. Race car engines. They got a couple of real bad turnkey hot rods down there right now. Yes, EliteHP.com. Also, remember Stroud Safety, Flow Racing, Sand Haulers of America. These are the companies that keep us doing this show every Wednesday afternoon, and thank you guys all for being a part of it. We're headed into the end of the season, guys. There's not a whole lot of racing left. Let's briefly talk Pomona. We're working right now to put together a live show for this Sunday to watch the final race of the year unfold. Who's your pick to win it all in Top Fuel? Mike, I'm going to start with you. We're going to write our picks down. Torrance, it's kind of a lock. JT?
Yeah, same.
That makes 3.
Okay. I'm going to pick Torrance as well. What did you guys make of the news about, speaking Top Fuel, Mike Salinas his pro stock motorcycle team kind of merging with Matt Smith Racing. I was surprised by that. Did you guys know that was coming?
I didn't, but it's smart. I think it's a smart move for both of them.
I don't know how. I mean, I don't know if you've ever. I'm sure you guys have, but maybe as viewers, you don't get to see Matt Smith during a round of pro stock motorcycle. If his bike is not in the water box, he is helmet on, running lane to lane, lining people up. You know, like if he's got two bikes, he'll like swap lanes, real quick. If he's not running one of his own bikes, like it's pretty cool. But yeah, I think that was a good move for the Salinas family for sure.
Kind of interesting though. I just didn't. It felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. But you know what? Who I'm happy for? Matt Smith. You know, I've seen that guy year after year after year kind of scramble. I mean, he's had some great sponsors along the way, no doubt about it. Lucas Oil, Mark Stocksmith, Elite Motorsports helps him out. There's a slew of people that support that young man. But I've always felt like he kind of deserved maybe a little more than he got. Obviously, Denso Spark Plugs. I hate to leave them out. Lisa Mickler and the team at Denso Spark Plugs, Denso Racing. But isn't it good to see him, you know, have some secure? I mean, that Salinas,
yes, for sure,
companion there is going to be a great one to head into the future with, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's exciting. Okay, let's move on to Funny Car, which I think may be one of the most interesting categories we're going to have wrap up this weekend at Pomona at the NHRA Finals. Ron Capps, who joined us earlier today, Matt Hagan, Cruz Pedregon, J.R. Todd, John Force, all technically, mathematically in the mix. Mike, I'm going to start with who do you like to seal the deal in Pomona Sunday?
Mr. Capps. I said that earlier. Sticking with it.
Especially after the conversation today, it's going to be hard to.
We kind of got to pick him just because he was on today and was such a great interview, right? I mean, like he did a great job.
We've had all these guys on. We've had Force. We've had Hagen.
I know, but we had him on today.
I'm a Caps fan. I would love to see him win it, but I'm going to step out on a ledge and say that there's a huge shakeup in E1, and the Cruiser goes on to win a championship.
Dude,
Cruz
Pedregon was on WFO radio earlier, like an hour before we went on the air, and I wasn't able to watch it. I'm going to go back and watch it because I wonder what that conversation is like. I will tell you, if I'm Ron Capps, I'm certainly uncomfortable right now because none of these guys and I'm not saying that anybody makes you feel good, but these are four racers that are the last racers you want nipping on your heels. I mean, yes. Matt Hagan, I think, is racing. Matt just seems to have like a chip on his shoulder in like the best possible way. That's typically something that means that's negative, but you can just tell that he is racing with like a different level of purpose, a deeper purpose. I can't quite get a read on it, but you can just see it in every interview. I think the interactions that we've had with him, this dude is wound up in 2021 trying to win this deal. I think Cruz Pedregon, I think that's a solid play. It could happen. John Force still being in the mix is almost unbelievable. But I'm gonna fall in line and say that Ron Capps is going to stick it out and get the job done out there.
J.R. Todd is also.
Yeah, he's another guy. Can you imagine? Do you think this is going to get sealed early, or do you think it's going to be one of those deals where it's going to be like done, or go down to the final round?
I don't know. I mean, because that could shake out so many different ways depending on qualifying. That's a hard call to make. I'm looking at the points right now.
Do we know how far? I mean, I know I was looking before the show, but do we know how far Capps has to go?
Capps has got to go Hagen's got to go 2 rounds further than Capps.
And Cruz would need them to go out early and win, I think.
Yeah, Cruz, everyone else pretty much has to have either of those guys, especially Capps, go out first round.
Yeah, it could happen. How much of a difference does it make that Ron Capps and company won back in July in Pomona? Do you think that? I mean, it was like 2 million degrees.
He said it was hot. Did you see him say it was hot? He was sweating today. I wonder what the weather is looking like for Pomona this weekend. That's
interesting because you have to believe having success there earlier in the year will translate to having success there late in the year. One would certainly think. But man, it's just been so nasty in Funny Car lately that I don't know that there's no easy out here. There's no layup. It's a really amazing time for the sport of drag racing. As much as we bitch and complain, about things that we want to be better or whatever, this is incredible. The competition that exists, the participation that exists.
If it's going to be hot, Capps, I'm
Stan
90 degrees.
Stan Waxberg says hot in the 90s.
Okay, so there you go.
I think that's even more of a lock for
Stock.
Ron Cap. So yeah, let's go to Pro Stock.
Yeah.
This Greg Anderson, Erica Enders, Dallas Glenn, Kyle Koretsky, I guess technically, potentially some maybe in the mix mathematically. I think it's coming down to Greg, Erica, and Dallas.
I think it's just Dallas, Erica, and Glenn or Greg. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Dallas,
so
Greg, yeah,
you're going obviously with Erica. You say JT.
Yep.
I'm going to go with Erica. I don't know, man. I do. I look for Erica to seal the deal. I don't think that
It's going to be awesome either way. I mean, like
it's
right?
going to
This
be
is the
awesome.
closest. By the way, this is what we want.
You know, I mean, this is what.
Actually,
I mean, this is what we want to watch right here, right?
Yep.
Everybody's
I was
close.
going to say
Anybody
this is
can
the
win
closest battle, but Pro Stock Motorcycle, which we'll get to next, is actually the closest battle. Yeah, man, this one's tough.
You can't bet against Erica in this situation. She's proven it time and time again. I'm not trying to be a fanboy, but in these moments, this is when she's best. I think she's going to perform better now than if she had a bye. You know what I mean? Like she's going to do better in this moment than if she had a bye. Yeah. And I think that given
I got to go Erica too. I've always said that when the chips are down, the clutch gene is what I call it. She's 32 points. She's 32 points down right now. And can't those 2 points be made up in qualifying?
So
yeah.
That means you have to qualify Greg, or Greg will stretch that, right? You know,
which will put her two rounds. So she's got to go 2 rounds further than Greg. So
we're gonna have a similar situation to Vegas.
It's gonna be.
Let's just be real. You know,
like gonna be.
We need somebody to knock Greg out early. You know, which is gonna be tough to do again, right? I mean, we're
gonna see a lot more of the qualifying. We'll call
100%.
We'll call it manipulation. I don't know any other word for it. Trying to manipulate the qualifying ladder for favorable matchups first round. That may be the most interesting part of the weekend.
And I don't think, but there's like a 1 point spread between, like if Greg or Erica qualify on the pole or second, you know, there's not a huge spread. So I think regardless, Erica's going to have 2 rounds. She's going to have to, you know, go further than Greg to win it, regardless of how qualified. I mean, it's going to be tough to beat Greg. Let's be real. You know, I mean, he's raced really well all year. Obviously, I got to go with my girl EE to get the job done. And she proved it in Vegas that she's up for the challenge. Dallas just, you know, happened to be there as well.
Is Dallas Glenn racing with like house money at this point? Because I mean, if Erica and Greg go out in round 1, which could definitely happen,
absolutely,
he could win the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that will a young man in this position, first season, we've never really seen this kind of success for a rookie season driver. It's a small group of people that have this type of success early on. I'm curious if do you shrink in this moment because you've never been there before? You know, I mean, is the stage too big? Is the light too bright?
This dude is a machine, man.
I mean,
I think if he, it would not shock me if we're talking about next week, the craziness that goes on and Dallas Glenn wins the deal.
I mean, he's in the finals in Vegas.
Can you be overconfident though? Because I've thought to myself, he's done so well this year. Could you get in your own head and go like, hey man, I got this wrapped up.
I guess it's always possible, but in the finals in Vegas, I mean, there couldn't have been any more pressure from his team, especially, right? Greg goes out in round 1. You know, he's in the finals against one of 2 that can beat Greg for the championship this year. And in the final, he goes up there with all that pressure and goes 001. Like, I don't think you can rattle him. You know, I think he's just, and I've met Dallas, you know, just this year, but hell, he's worked 5 miles down the road from the shop, you know, for most of his career. And I just don't think you rattle that kid. Like, I think that you're going to have to outrun him and leave with him if you're even going to be close at the finish line.
I mean, the kid went 016, 003. He went 030 in the semis, but Mason McGahey went red. So, I mean, I don't think that really counts. And he went 001 in the final, like you said, Lyle. That's unheard of. How long can you do? Yes, because how long do you do that before you start going red? You know what I mean? Because I almost think
001, you're red.
Yeah,
like you just happen to be green. Like that's not, you know, he's.
Hey Lyle, if it's hot and the cars are spinning the tires off the starting line, how much does that factor into reaction times? Will we see them? How much will these guys adjust their clutch pedal or their approach if it's hot?
That's the difference. And like if we were there, you know, like in Vegas in the afternoons, we were quicker leaving, but ours is super dependent on the track, right? Because we can't, there's not really a whole lot of adjustment for us, right? We're just trying to leave the same every time. They can shorten the clutch pedal, and the crew chiefs can do stuff on the starting line to help them. There's all kind of stuff, adjustments that can be made. But if it is that hot, you will see, I would say, I don't know, a number slow, maybe, I would dare to say. And if the sun's beating down, that always can slow you down some too, as opposed to it being overcast or maybe into the night session. So, but I just don't think you see those guys waver much.
No, I mean, and I got to be honest. I mean, I think the field
this stuff anyway. I mean, like,
I want to pick Erica. I really do.
When he was in jail.
You look at the 32-point lead going in. I've seen the chips have fallen her way, and she's delivered when she's needed to so many times that it's just hard to imagine a situation where if she has a chance to win the championship, she won't win it. But Greg, between the 100th win this year, the way they've performed, and they've clearly got the baddest car on the. I mean, if you go down, so let's table some of the driving.
12 number one qualifiers.
12 number one qualifiers. He's got the baddest car on the property.
That's half the. That's over half. Well over half the races.
I think Greg will have to, something will have to happen with Greg to open the door.
Well, but I mean, if they duplicate, and odds are slim, but if Vegas was it, and we were in this situation right now, but Vegas was the final race, Erica wins the championship. So it's not far fetched, right? Like it's a definite possibility.
What would your strategy be, Lyle? Just as a racer, would you have a strategy going into this type of deal? Would you try to put together some sort of matchup, or what
I would duplicate exactly what happened in Vegas is exactly what I would do.
I think it's going to be a duplication of Vegas,
and if
as far as strategy,
like next week's show, you haven't said it yet today, but I'm going to say it will be a barn burner if they are able to do what they did in Vegas and the chips fall the way that they did in Vegas and Erica wins the championship. It is going to be madness. Like the internet will probably shut down. There will be people beating your door down to be on the show next Wednesday. Like it will be
next week's going to be a barn burner anyway. We're going to get these champions on here, as many as we can, and it's going to be awesome.
What do you make of real quick though, one thing, what is the Mike, JT, Lyle, I want all of you to chime in on this, and we'll do Pro Stock Motorcycle and we'll get the shoots out here. What will be the strategy from, I mean, we saw do we see everybody participating? I mean, do we see every car laying up to stack the bottom of the ladder? Everybody except E is going to try to qualify in the bottom half of the field. Do you agree? I mean, we're going to see Bo Butner.
100%.
Every one of those elite cars is going to try to be from 9 to 16. Agreed?
100%.
I think so. I mean,
why wouldn't you?
What do you think? What do you think Greg and Dallas do if they see that happening? Do they do something to try to counteract it?
You can do.
I don't know what you can do. With a presence like Elite has in the pits. Like. I don't know what you do unless you wait and try to shoot for the 12 to 15 spot to try and run Erica first round.
Would that not be crazy to go out there? Out there first round of qualifying, and it's like everybody is off the gas at 1,000 feet or something. I mean,
right? Yeah. I mean, because you got to figure, like right now, Erica is going to, they're going to try to get those qualifying points. They're going to try to qualify number one, but you're going to have Marty Robertson. Likely Bo Butner, likely Aaron Stanfield, likely Troy Coughlin. And I mean, I would say now that I'm under the impression that the Quadra cars are under the Elite banner as well. Yeah. I don't know how many cars they plan on bringing. They'll just have one. Yeah. They'll just have one. Okay, so that's 5 cars that they can stack on the bottom half of the field. I don't know any way to counteract that other than laying up. Other than laying way up. And trying to run E.
That Greg wants to stay those points
31
ahead. So the
qualifying points he has to.
Are key. Yeah. So he'll want to stay.
Billy Carroll says, "I hope they don't pull that crap again."
But they're going. I mean, there's going to be.
But look,
and
no
matter what,
I saw that comment too. And Billy, I want to talk directly to you for a second. What you've got to understand is that this isn't an Erica versus Greg. This is an Elite Motorsports versus KB rivalry. Like this is not about anything except Elite trying to win the championship as a team. Obviously they're doing it with Erica Enders leading the charge, but this isn't about, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand why people are frustrated about it, and I get it. But when you're talking about two teams that are arch rivals trying to win a championship, you got to do what you got to do to win it. And like, there's no deny, like you can't argue that. That's just the
what
way
do you think will be the reaction from our racing community? I mean, you talked about the internet will break and it's the show next week will be a barn burner. I agree. But I mean, if we see, let's just say Erica Enders qualifies number 1 and she's got to race Aaron Stanfield in the first round. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you guys, and there's no way those cars both make it to the finish line under power. There's no chance. You heard it here.
You can't. But you can't. Like, and I know, I guess I'm biased because I'm a part of the team, right? You know, and they're my teammates and whatnot. But like, if Erica's
she's in the hunt,
if they're going to win the championship, that's what you got to do. Yep. You know, and people can be mad about it. And, you know, and apparently if you're not an Erica Enders fan or Elite Motorsports fan, you think it's the biggest crock of shit you've ever, and, you know, I've heard it and seen it all. But, man, you got to do what you got to do.
And I think that this is probably, Stan has a very strong point here. I think that's people paying attention, they just don't want it to be lied about. Or, you know what I mean? I think that if this is what you guys are going to do, I think you're just going to have to own it. I kind of feel like, I almost wonder if they came out and said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure, we're going to do our damnedest to put Double E in the final. And give her a chance to run for it. And maybe it is what they've done.
They've really clarified. They've done an Aaron Rodgers clarifying their statement and clarifying their stance since Vegas as to what the deal is. And I think it all makes sense now. I think it just caught everybody off guard. And I think it maybe even caught, you know, when they approached Erica, that was maybe not exactly what she wanted to say as far as how to address it. And I think obviously the elephant is in the room or out of the room now, whatever you want to say, and it's going to be clear what the intention is going into Pomona. And
Billy Carroll, this is true. I mean, my point is, I believe she could accomplish it and still could have done it this weekend. It just didn't need to happen. You know, hey, I mean, I get it. I totally get it, and it probably would have been a much more romantic story. You know what I mean? If she would have went out there and won 3 rounds on a whole shot and won the final on a whole shot, and it was 100, much like we've seen our boy here, Lyle, do. You know, I mean, everybody talked about, you know, celebrating the turbo cars coming back, and I'm kind of going, well, that's cool and all, but Lyle won those races. I mean, I know that you're a team player, but I mean, the driver made the difference in those runs specifically. I don't know. It's fun, and the coolest part about it is that people are talking about it. That's the victory, is that this is the most talked about thing going on. I mean, it's such a cool thing to see everybody talking about it. We'll touch on Pro Stock Motorcycle here. We got Steve Johnson in the hunt for a championship along with Matt Smith, Angel Sampay. Kind of cool to see all those names in the mix. I mean, if you really think about it, those are some legends. If you're going to put together a Mount Rushmore of Pro Stock motorcycle racers, they're all 3 on it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you've got the 3 baddest Pro Stock motorcycle racers of the modern era, legends of the category, all in contention for the championship this year. Let's hear our picks. Mike, we'll start with you.
My pick is Matt Smith, but all 3 of these would be great stories for different reasons, especially Steve Johnson. I think that is the underdog story that everybody will be pulling for. So, and he's only 20 points out. Angel's only 30 points out. This is going to be
crazy.
The one to watch, I think, as far as all these battles. But I think in the end, Matt Smith pulls it out.
Real quick, and we're glossing over this, are we going to see any strategy in this category? Nobody seems to be talking about that.
I mean, you're going to see more strategy in all these classes after they've seen this Pro Stock deal. I think you're even going to see it in the fuel classes to some degree.
Yep, I agree. And
I'm trying to pull up. Go ahead, Lyle.
In Pro Stock Motorcycle, I'm going with hometown hero as well, Matt Smith. You know, like I was saying earlier, there's no single person that I see anyway that works as hard as he does to make sure his whole team is ready, you know, and then after all this said and done, he sits on his own bike and has done really well this year. So I'm pulling for Matt.
Same.
Monday Morning Racer says, just remember the last time we had the finals in Pomona, 2019, it was insane overall. I expect the same. I agree. I think it's going to be bonkers. Matt Smith, he's got a team, right? So does Angel Sampey. How interesting or how much of a disadvantage is it for Steve Johnson to be kind of going this battle alone? Have you thought?
I think that I think that the Denzo crowd is a little bit crazy to not strategize a little bit. I could also see, Matt being Ricky Smith's son, them not doing that and racing, to the front, trying to qualify all their bikes up front. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But I think in this situation, if he's got those extra cards to play, you use them, and that's
what are
that's
the results of this
go.
race, the July Pomona race in Pro Stock Motorcycle?
Man, I actually don't know off the top of my head, but I can get it for us here pretty quickly.
I'll pull it up.
How
because
the story
situation is going to be a story because it sounds like it's going to be a repeat of the July deal.
I don't know that did they run Pro Stock Motorcycle in Pomona?
I'm not so sure that they did.
They maybe didn't. Yeah. I'm looking it up.
Well, I'm looking at the entry or the qualifying sheet from Vegas. There's only 16.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, they did?
Yep.
There was only 16 bikes in Vegas. So you figure no one's going to, more than likely you're not going to have to worry about not qualifying. If you're, wouldn't it be cool to see Steve Johnson try to take out Matt Smith like in E1 or something like that? And just, you know what I mean? Like if he gets there and there's 16 bikes, just make an early shutoff run.
Well, I saw somebody's comment earlier.
Qualified number 1 in July. Angel was number 2.
I saw somebody's comment earlier about only 11 Pro Mods in Vegas, and that was simply because the championship was decided the race prior to Bristol, and nobody from the East Coast is driving to Vegas just to race except for us. But, the same thing in Pro Stock Motorcycle. Like maybe the NHRA thinks about a change later or you don't. I know finishing out there in Pomona is the big deal, but like if you want more participation at the end of the year, you got to centralize your final race, right? Because somebody who is mathematically out of contention, like who's going to drive to Pomona for that?
A lot of money to spend.
And people bash Pro Mod every year. 7 cars in Vegas, 11 cars, and I thought 11 was a great turnout. I was expecting less.
It was
than
more
10.
than I thought. I thought less than 10.
But when the championship is decided the race before, I just don't know what anybody else expect. Like, it's easy to type it, and I'm gonna soapbox for a minute. It's easy to type it, but it's damn hard to fund it. Trust me, I can, if you want me to, I'll send you the travel invoice that it costs for us to go out there. And I promise you would have said, I'd probably set that one out. Now, thankfully we didn't, we got there and win the thing, but like it just doesn't even make sense really, So, for the final race of the year to be on the opposite coast of the majority of, of your
or you've got to make it away, or you got to do like double point. Or I don't know.
It is points and a half this weekend.
Well, it is points and a half.
That's a legacy deal from the good old Southern California.
Yeah, and I understand not varying from that.
The sports change. I'm agreeing with you though, but you've got to adapt a little bit.
Yeah.
In Pro Stock Motorcycle in July, Matt Smith and Angel Sampey were 1 and 2 in qualifying and faced each other in the finals with Matt Smith winning the race. I think that is a hard.
Matt's just such a bulldog. You know what I mean? Like he's leading the points. I've really been impressed with how he has handled some of their struggles in the countdown. You see guys get up in arms and you can kind of see them spinning out. You know what I mean? Like, we've been doing good all year. And now when we need to do well again, we're struggling. Oh my God. And they kind of feel like they're getting behind the 8 ball or they lose momentum. He's handled it really well, taking it in stride, had some early exits and kind of just kept his cool. It might be that long hair he's growing out, the flat bill he's been rocking, but he's kind of just been super chill about all this stuff. And you think about him going out there, I don't know.
I think he gets it done. I think he does it.
I think it's going to be hard.
Johnson, it's super streaky,
Good point.
He'll go up there and lay down some killer run in qualifying and go up there in E1 or 2 or somewhere and the bike won't start or it does something crazy. And Matt Smith is just, historically speaking, over this year has just been solid, so I just think Matt gets it done. I don't think anybody else has a chance.
It's cool because no matter how it goes down, it's going to be badass. I will say that there's a huge story to be had if Angel wins it. It looked like she wasn't going to race this season, more than likely wasn't going to race this season. It was a devastating blow to her because she was kind of having this comeback, exciting deal unfolding in front of all of us with the Harley deal, joining Vance and Hines. Harley goes away. You don't even know if those bikes are going to be out there. They arrive on the scene. To see her in contention for a championship has to be a victory for that team. But she wants to win the ring. Steve Johnson, if he wins it, the interview is going to be lit. The post-race interview is going to be some kind of scene. But it would be the feel-good story of the summer. I mean, that would be one of the most celebrated champions our sport's probably ever seen. Everybody loves this guy, cheers him on. But I'm with you, Lyle. I just don't.
They faced so much
had a rough year
with Jock with the COVID deal, and then the gun accident, and just
then Angels, they get decimated by the hurricane.
Man,
crazy stuff going on.
Yep.
But anyway.
Very interesting. Okay, well, Pro Stock Motorcycle, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to watch, dude. I can't freaking wait. I really do want to do our live thing. We'll touch base on this thing tomorrow and kind of get a plan. I do think we should go live and watch. I mean, if we don't watch the whole race, I know that would take the whole day, but I think maybe we could go live and just watch the first round or something together, because people are this is going to be fun. I mean, at the bare minimum, this is going to be fun to watch.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, hey, I want to tell everybody. You're good. Go ahead.
First off, Stevie Jackson and I next weekend, Friday night, 2.4 hours of Le Mullets.
Tell us about how that whole deal came to be real quick.
Well,
because if anybody doesn't know, Cletus McFarland, perhaps the biggest star in car culture currently. His 2.4 hours of Le Mullet is basically everybody gets what Toyota, some sort of four-door sedan.
It's a Crown Vic.
Yeah, Crown Vics. Police interceptors and race around Cletus's oval track there in Bradenton. How'd you get involved in this thing?
So Doug Cook, Andy Cook, Brian Jack, now Cletus is a partner at Motion Raceworks, a longtime sponsor of mine. Anything that I drag race, they sponsor. They've been and now they're like family. We hang out and stuff outside of the racetrack. But Doug called me, wanted to know if I wanted to drive the Motion Raceworks Crown Vic in the 2.4 hours of Le Mullets. And then the next day, Cletus calls and said, "Hey, do you think Stevie Jackson would be your teammate?" And I'm like, absolutely, and he couldn't believe it. And I called Stevie and he's like, hell yes. So, Stevie and I have been strategizing. I've talked to my late model buddies that race local on what to do with stagger, I'm taking all these notes. Mechanically, we can't do anything to the car. And we can't do anything to shave weight. Right. But we get, a couple hours to doctor it up, make it look cool and whatnot. So Stevie and I are partners. $14.95 pay-per-view on CletusMcFarland.com. That gets you free viewership of next day's Cletus and Cars. Well, I will be competing in the burnout competition in the Motion Raceworks Bald Regal, which is pretty cool. So be sure to check that out. But last but not least, I launched my fundraiser for the JMS kids yesterday.
Yep.
So for those of you, I know all of you watching probably know the JMS Burn Center at the Doctor's Hospital in Augusta is where I was when they patched me back together after my fire in 2015. I was there close to the holidays, but I left in early November, and there were some kids coming in that had been involved. This is burn season, right? And for those of you that are watching, if you're having a bonfire or a fire in a fire barrel, no gasoline, use diesel fuel. I saw one today. I talked to the people down there around this time of the year getting ready. They've got burn patients coming in daily that are gasoline and bonfire related. Just don't do it. You're about to start frying turkeys. Be careful. Those are huge. 70% of the burn patients they see every year are involved with one of the two.
Wow.
But there's a lot of kids that come in this time of the year that will spend their Christmas holiday there. If you're in that burn center, you're more than likely airlifted there. Or brought from a ways out. So the families literally relocate. And sometimes there are burn patients that are there 6 and 8 months, but they're going to spend their Christmas holiday there. Parents are quitting jobs. The bills are still coming in. They can't afford Christmas for their kids. It's heartbreaking. It is a heartstring puller. But every year for the past 4 years, I've started a fundraiser through GoFundMe. And we raise it through the end of November. At the end of November, because of COVID, all the toys have to be sanitary, they can't be used toys. So it has to be new. The Sherry Vadetto, who is head of kind of public relations down there at the burn center, puts in a massive toy order at Target or Walmart, wherever. I pay for it and then they go pick it up, or it is delivered to the burn center. They have what they call Shop with the Docs. They have a conference room.
Well, that's cool.
They put all of these toys in this conference room. They bring the kids through one at a time, and they literally shop in their own toy store while they're spending their Christmas holiday in the burn center. So it's obviously special to me because those people saved my life. And I got to see some of the kids and the families, that were going to spend months through the Christmas holiday there. So it's just an awesome way for me to give back. And all of you guys that supported me when I came out of the burn center, this is the way that we continue to give back to those people because they are angels on earth. The nurses, the doctors, and the people that handle this stuff down there, unbelievable. So again, I started. Are
you going to post the link on your social? Or?
It's out. It is out now.
It's on there. Yeah, I'm trying to post it.
We raised almost $4,000 in less than 24 hours. My goal is 20 grand. Last night, Chad Reynolds and I agreed that if we raise $60,000, I'll shave my beard off in the water box at the Snowbird Nationals at Bradenton, December the 5th.
It'll be worth it.
If we raise 60 grand, I'm going to shave my beard. I'm getting there a barber's coming in. We are straight razoring my face on the starting line at Bradenton if we raise 60 grand. So
holy crap.
But my goal is 20 grand. It will be my biggest times 2. And it's I'm taking a race car down there. Like we do all this stuff for the kids whenever this happens. So anything helps. $1, anything that you can donate. If you don't want to do it through GoFundMe, I have a PayPal address that you can PM me. I'll give you that. Wes, I was obviously going to get you guys to share it through Drag Illustrated and trying to make this thing happen by the end of the month. It's so awesome to see those kids. I don't get to be there because they're trying to limit exposure and whatnot. I don't get to be in the conference room, but it's awesome to see the pictures and the videos of these kids walk in there. Mounds of toys. I'll send you pictures, Wes, that you can post on DI.
Please, because I want to do a story on it. We'll do a story on it by this tomorrow or Friday because we need to. I mean, it's an awesome thing that you're doing. Give them some, just shine a light on what's happening there, and obviously what you're doing to try to make these kids' Christmas a little bit brighter. It's obviously going to be a rough one for them. I always hear that thing about bonfires that 70% of people in burn units are there because they were, having a kegger in their backyard and couldn't get the fire burning,
Yeah. So, I mean, like all of you are going to be in windbreakers, right? Well, those things they melt to your body. And I've learned and seen all this, it's just no gasoline, no aerosol cans in the trash. Hard to weed that out. If you're gearheads like us, spray paint, brake clean cans, none of those, no gasoline, use diesel fuel or kerosene. And just be careful. The turkey fryers, awful for this time of the year as well. You just got to be careful. We don't want you or your kids to be one of those that we're donating to in the burn center. So just be careful.
100%. Do the right thing and eat beef.
Yeah.
That's the play. Real. I'm out on turkey, man. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. I love all of you, and I love everybody that watches this show every Wednesday afternoon. The emails, the messages, it means the world to us. If you have a question, a comment, concern, a subject that you think we should touch on, let us know. Wes@dragillustrated.com. Send a message to the Drag Illustrated Facebook page. Shoot us a message on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment. Makes all the difference in the world. If there's somebody that you'd like for us to talk to, I'm pretty proud of our reach at this point in time.
Absolutely.
We can get a hold of about anybody you want to hear from. So if there's somebody that you'd love for us to interview, someone you'd love to talk shop with here on the Wes Buck Show, let us know, and we'll round them up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of it. Guys, I'll see you next Wednesday. Well, I'll see all of you all tomorrow. The rest of you, I'll see you next Wednesday. If not sooner, Monday night, the Drag Illustrated Ride Along, Season 4 of No Prep Kings rolls along. We'll be live Monday night. Thank you, guys. God bless you.
Later, guys.
Later, y'all. Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody.